Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Ironman League. I am Ryan Jacobs and I'm joined by Lewis. Lewis, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, no, I'm doing well. Obviously, George has abandoned us. He's apparently sick or something, but that just tells me that he's skiving. He doesn't want to be here. He's sick of commentating with me. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I can offend the Yarno fans by myself. It's always a lot of fun. You're jumping in for the first time. It's a full distance race. This stuff's crazy.
It certainly is, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it. Obviously, you've got some big names, and let's just jump straight into it. Let's get into the driver lineup, and let's see who is racing here tonight. And there's some big names. Obviously, it's a team championship as well, but the two big names are obviously in that Mercedes lineup, Danny Berezne and Jarno Opmeer. They'll be obviously the big names to watch here tonight.
Yeah, you can see the return, by the way, of Istvan Pukki and Dylan Warren in the Scuderia. So great to see those back. They missed the previous round. We all know the incredible battle. Obviously, I don't know if you caught up on it, but last round we had an absolutely insane battle between Jarno Opmeer and Thomas Ronhaar. Chanakinci showed some great pace as well as the consistency, the ruthless consistency as Ben Jarbo Cognier in this. Again, each round we go through, a lot of these drivers, particularly on the amateur teams, they're getting stronger and stronger, and they're challenging those higher up. So, do you know what? I'm excited for this. I don't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah, definitely so. And obviously with these amateur teams, you never know what these drivers really can produce. Obviously new tracks, and obviously it being random as well. We obviously don't know what's going to happen. So it's going to be quite an interesting side of things for that one. Let's move on to the drivers standing, or the team standings for this one. And it's Mercedes that lead the way on 124 points. They're not far behind leading that way, obviously, with Haas. They're not too far behind. And obviously around it, the championship order can really change in a click of the fingers.
Yeah, it really can. We've only got 3 rounds left to go until we see the end of this championship. Yes, Mercedes are in a really solid position, but like I say, when I was saying about the ruthless consistency of Benz Jarbo Cognier, I think of the rounds that we've had thus far. Of the 4 rounds, Benz Jarbo Cognier's been on the podium for 3 of those. Ilas Zildrim had the victory, of course, at the Mexican round. It's fascinating to see how it's unfolded throughout the run of the championship, and it's kind of what's made it so exciting. I still think, let's be honest, Mercedes, they're the team to beat. It's not just about the points gap; it's about the drivers. Danny Berezne, fresh of his win in PSGL, Jarno Opmeer's always class, and fresh of a victory in this championship when we went racing in the wet in Bahrain. You just never know where it's going to go and how it's going to unfold.
Definitely so. And let's just go back to the intermission scene and see what we're talking about. And Bahrain is going to be the track. No, it's not. It's not going to be the track. It's just at the minute all loading up. We're obviously going to wait and see. But I do have some information. Qualifying it is going to be clear, so it's going to be a nice dry qualifying. But for the race, it's going to be very wet, overcast. Then it's going to be clear again. So that's going to be quite interesting. A wet race at the start.
Yeah, which we've not actually seen this season. We've seen wet races, obviously. We've seen rain affect every race that we've done thus far. But them starting very wet, that's actually the rarity. So who knows what we're going to deal with when it comes down to that first corner. Of course, again, we still don't know the track. The tracks it can be Singapore, Hungary, Belgium, France, or Vegas. And we don't know which one it's going to be of those 5. We just know that it's going to be one of those 5. We do now know which one it's going to be because it's just ticked over to Hungary. Ooh.
That's an interesting track, one which personally I've driven 1,000 times, and it really is an interesting one because there's not too many places that you can really make an overtake. You've kind of got to be brave really into the first sector, I'd say, and the opening 2 corners are probably your prime opportunity, or really getting a good run off before the start of sector 2, I'd say, is really where your best opportunities are to really make any kind of overtakes.
Yeah, indeed. I'm very curious as to how this one's going to go because we know for the most part, drivers like Berezne, Opmeer, Ronhaar, that lot. Maybe sometimes, I guess, Chanakinci, they don't tend to qualify. They tend to start from the rear of the field because it's maximum banter mode. And so if there were, of the circuits that we're going to, this is kind of one where I actually don't really want to start towards the back because it's obviously it's not a street circuit, but it's the vibe around the back end of the track sometimes can kind of lean it towards that really tricky to overtake, hard to work your way up the order kind of vibe.
Definitely so, and obviously this is the home track for a lot of these drivers, and you would think that they would have a lot of confidence being around here because obviously being at your home circuit, you definitely want to be setting in the fastest lap times, and we could see some really quick lap times from a lot of these amateur drivers who aren't in these top teams.
Did you ever go like a lot stronger at Silverstone? Yeah, obviously.
No,
Was that not?
that's the funny
No.
thing. I always struggled at Silverstone, so maybe that could be the same for some of these drivers. But again, some people really like to spend a lot of time on their home circuit, and we could see some really strong performances from a lot of these drivers.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those circuits where it can appeal to some drivers, and some drivers can really find that extra, 10 or so, particularly from the amateur side of things. I don't expect there to be any major shocks. We know the likes of Ron Har and Ottmar and Brezhnev, they're all going to be the fastest. Fair enough. But then, like from those amateur teams, these are the kind of circuits where you can find that extra little bit. Ben Ocon, you be caught up with him after the last round, and he was saying, he's really looking for a race victory at some point this season. Would like to pick one up. I mean, how fitting would it be to do it on virtual home soil?
Yeah, it'd be ever so sweet for him, and there's going to be a lot of drivers that are going to be wanting to add their name to the list of first round, well, their first victory in this Ironman League, and it being 100%, it always changes the strategy around. You obviously get to see unique ways, and obviously tyre management is going to be a key factor in this. Hungary has been notorious for tyre wear being such a significant part of the race, so it'll be interesting to see the tyre wear and the tyre management of a lot of these drivers do go for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that back end of the circuit where you're going from one side to the other, you're throwing it around. It does really wear out the tyres quite high. It's also quite an abrasive surface, so you've got that, and also running pretty soft tyres around here. So qualifying is going to be king, and then the start of the race when it's wet, that's where things are going to be really tricky indeed. You can see we are in the qualifying session now, and whilst you will see the likes of Danny Brezhnev and that lot up the order, I still believe there might be a retirement from them in this session, but we'll have to wait and see.
Definitely so, and at this moment in time, we've got a few drivers who are actually really pushing it at this moment in time. Esteban Pukki, currently the fastest man on the track, coming through this tight, fast left-hander. A lot of drivers will invalidate through that corner. I think a few have made a mistake. Jan Ottmar, of course, retiring. Thomas Ronhart at the back. A few of these drivers, like you mentioned, are definitely going to prefer to start at the back of the grid and really make their life a bit harder. And sometimes you've got to wonder why you would do that, because it makes it ever so harder to even make your way through the field. And on a track like Hungary, where there's minimal places really to overtake, can be quite a hard task for a lot of these drivers.
Yeah, and fascinatingly so, with the final, half a kilometre and a bit left to go of this 4.4k circuit. Danny Brezhnev remains pushing, although he has now dropped back. So Brezhnev now bails from his lap. Esteban Pukki will come through the final corner, and on his return to the Ironman League, he will cross over the line and take pole position over Ulas Yildirim. So that is absolutely fantastic. I'm assuming Napoleon Bonaparte is still Tamakinchi. He's not Optimus Prime anymore. But there we go. Pole position for Esteban Pukki.
Yeah, it's a great lap indeed as well, and it kind of an interesting grid behind that as well. Ulas Yildirim in second place, so he'll be one to watch as well. Only 2.5 tenths near enough, bit less than that, obviously. But again, this is a fascinating lineup, and it's going to be interesting to see what the guys from below Bence, Sobakany are all going to be able to do here, because again, down in 15th place, you're really going to wonder how are they going to be able to get into the points, because it's such a narrow circuit. And I'm going to be really interested to see how the likes of Thomas Ronald, Danny Brezhnev, Jan Ottmar are all going to be able to make their way through this field, because I think it's going to more go down to the strategy.
I think when it's wet on this race start, I still just believe that drivers like Ottmar, drivers like Ronhard, they're going to carve their way through this field, and it's what's going to make it really, really fascinating. We saw this quite a lot with how things are running in Bahrain. They were able to cut their way through the field, and I think the big question now is going back to Bahrain. This is something that I'm sure you'll probably know a little bit more about. They're all getting ready to go out for a wet race, but we know it's going to dry up through the end of it. So how do you play the setup game? That's going to be so tricky.
Definitely, and that's something I'm going to be interested to see, because this track obviously requires a lot of downforce as well for it. So again, for the rain, they're going to have higher wings most likely, but again, you can lower the front wing in the race, and I'm going to be interested to see what kind of setup they're all going to be running. Obviously, you want to be running a wet setup at the start, but you can't obviously change it midway through the race. So they're going to have to try and find that sweet balance, which I think they'll all most likely go for a dry setup. It's the most logical sense because you'll start struggling. You'll obviously struggle at the start, but as the race progresses, the pace should pick up, and once you find that groove, that rhythm, which a lot of these drivers get into very, very quickly, then the lap time should just get quicker and quicker. And honestly, the racing we could see here tonight, the amount of overtakes as well, especially when it starts to go from that transition from heavy rain to light rain to then a full dry race, it's going to be quite fascinating to watch.
If there's one thing that I think is almost a guarantee here in the Ironman League is a safety car. We've had interventions in all of the races thus far. I would be absolutely amazed if we got through a race in Hungary without the intervention of a safety car. With it being so wet, that race down towards the first corner, surely it's highly likely we're going to get one even on the first lap.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past anyone to for this safety car to really come out, especially for that chicane as well. That can be some drivers get a little bit desperate and go for a cheeky move down the inside and say you just know two cars can't fit into that chicane, and there probably will be some drivers going to be obviously having to avoid and maybe cut a chicane, maybe get a penalty as well. So they have to be careful of that. But again, this is where the wet weather and the safety car can be so dramatic, and maybe it can be so vital for a lot of these drivers picking up front wing damage. That's going to be it's going to be costly around here, especially with how many corners there are, so many slow speed corners as well. Obviously some fast speed as well, but you've got to make sure it's right. And here we go, we're going to get underway, and I'll hand it over to you.
Yes, indeed. Of course, the Ironman League round number 5 here at the Hungary ring. It's Istvan Pukki on pole position, Ulas Yildirim alongside in this race down towards the first corner. Perfect launch from the pair of them. A slightly better one, though, from Norbert Jabo-Konyi. Surely that is a jump start, though. I think it might just be on the timing tower, rather. Istvan Pukki gets down the inside. Big slide from him. Open the door, though, for Chanakinchi to try and potentially get his way through as they depart the first corner and race their way down the hill towards turn 2 and turn 3. This is getting a little bit racy between a lot of them, and Chanakinchi goes out wide.
Yeah, it's a big mistake there from Chanakinchi, and Istvan Pukki, though, still leading the way, but at the minute it's a bit of a glitched order, so the timing table is all over the place. Jarno Opmeer already up into 11th place, so he's had an absolutely perfect start. Ronhard close behind, obviously a bit of a battle again. Jarno Opmeer back down the inside again. That's a brilliant move on the Aston Martin there, and he's side by side, and he should be able to hold that move, but Jarno Opmeer already up into the points.
Yeah, I trusted the timing tower a little bit too much, and it led me astray. Not leading us astray here on Jarno Opmeer's rise up the order as Danny Benser and Gabor Takash switch positions on the exit. Wow, look at this. 2-3 wide potentially coming out into the S's section. Looking up at Norbert Eisner, who's trying to close back up to Benz Alice. Oh, yeah, again, racy first lap, and you can see an enormous 1 second gap for Istvan Pukki, the Scuderia Ferrari driver, pulling out an enormous margin over Ulas Yildirim. That will chop and change over the running of the race, I have no doubt.
Yeah, Thomas Ronhart as well is making some more moves down the inside. Here goes the Dutchman up into P10 now, and he is in the points playing position. Such a good start, and Danny Beresne as well. He hasn't had the perfect start alongside his Mercedes teammate, but again, Thomas Ronhart down the inside. This is a brave move, and he's going to hopefully, for his sake, make the move stick, and he does. So he's now up into P8, just ahead of the Williams, and is the Williams going to try and fight back? He thinks better off at that time, and the McLaren as well in the background of Timbo. He now moves up into P10.
Yeah, he was trying to get past Norbert Jabo-Konyi and certainly did so, dropping Jabo-Konyi back down the order. Danny Beresne working his way through. Bench Jabo-Konyi is going to make it a Jabo-Konyi battle for 12th place between the brothers. I'm sure that one won't last particularly long, and I would suspect the Haas driver might find his way past the Aston Martin fairly sharpish. If not, there might be some familial conversations, let's put it that way, as Jarno Opmeer's got past Eisner, up now into 6th position. He's racing his way up the order. Now, last round, he got caught out a little bit. Obviously, he ended up winning, fair enough. But when he was in the battle with Thomas Ronhart in the wet at Bahrain, Jarno Opmeer was running a much drier setup. I wonder if he's gone the opposite tactic.
Yeah, and I think that could be an interesting point to make on what these drivers are all using on their setups. Because again, Jarno's looking the most comfortable out of anybody on this track right now in terms of making overtakes and just looking comfortable on the track. I'm seeing Einzer behind him in P7, just losing the rear end there on the exit. And we've got to move as well. Zoltan going down the inside, potentially. No, thinks better off it. Again, just testing the waters, a lot of these drivers. But Jarno is right onto the back, and he could be up into P4 before the end of turn 1 here.
They're quite literally testing the waters. Yeah, indeed, it might be fast to go around the circuit in a boat with how heavy the rain has been. Fastest lap being set by Esteban Pukki, now pulls out 2.5 seconds over Chanakinchi, riding on board. Ulas Azildrim, I believe, might have come into the pit lane then, even though that would be a very wise, unwise move. But I don't know what's happened to him, but he certainly has come in. So maybe it's crashed or something, I don't know. But Jarno Opmeer and Ben Solis going side by side, and the Red Bull driver will drop back behind the Mercedes of Jarno Opmeer. He is picking him off quickly, isn't he?
Yeah, he really is. He's making this look like everybody is on amateur while he's on elite. It's unbelievable how quick he's just dispatching everybody right now. And Ben Skobrachani obviously moving up into P11 now as well. And his brother also getting past Timbo, so it's 11th and 12th for the two brothers, who are not doing too bad off this start. And Danny Berezne as well, he's right onto the back of the Williams. And again, is Jarno Opmeer trying to go for a move? No, it's not. It's Red Bull and the AlphaTauri going side by side into the chicane. They had to take a void in action there. That was high drama again. Wow. But they're losing so much time right now, and Jarno Opmeer is going to try and make a move.
Yeah, Opmeer's going to go around the outside here of Shenegaratsky, and he's going to have the inside. Doesn't even need the inside for the next corner. The move is already done, so he's cleared both of the Red Bulls on this lap. Ben Silos first, coming out of T1 of the race down the hill. Here comes Ron Hart straight down the inside of the Red Bull as well. He might clear both of them. He's going to get super aggressive down the inside of Shenegaratsky, and the Alfa Romeo of Thomas Ronhaar is absolutely committed to try and keep behind Jarno Opmeer. He knows who he's battling for race victory this afternoon. Straight around the outside of the first of these two hairpins to end the lap here at the Hungaroring. That is incredible racing from Ronhaar.
Yeah, brilliant racecraft and brilliant bravery as well. And a lot of trust was shown in the Red Bull driver to not really turn in and give him just about enough racing room. And he did just about that. And I think Danny Berezne in the background there going for a move. And he is. And he's up into P9 is Danny Berezne. And it could be even P8. Side by side with the Ferrari. He's got the better line. Going around the outside. Now it's going to have to be a brave move to hold this one around the outside. Trying to get a bit more grip, but the Ferrari hanging in there right now. Bit of wheel banging between the two, but Danny Berezne will have the inside line, and he's now up into P8. A brilliant move there by Mercedes, from the Mercedes driver.
Yeah, absolutely incredible racing between this lot. Again, just showing fantastically what they've got, what they can deliver around this circuit, and again, showing us how it's done. That's a brilliant move as we see Eisner and Gabor Takac going side by side up towards the chicane. Now, the Williams were running quite strong back in Bahrain, but they had a couple of larger moments later on in the race. We'll have to wait and see if that's going to be if that's going to bear any fruit here this afternoon. Zoltan Boda going to start feeling the pressure from Jarno Opmeer, who's going to start feeling in pressure himself, by the way, because Ronhaar is right onto the rear end. They've done such a good job to work their way through this field.
Yeah, and that was the one thing I was worried about, was how they were going to get through all these all the drivers in front of them. But they've made it look so easy in these opening 4 laps, and you'd think they're going to be challenging Istvan Pukki in only a few laps time, because the pace they're showing is absolutely phenomenal. And remember, Ronhaar did get the fastest lap just beforehand, so again, he is showing some good pace. And there we go, he sets another fastest lap of this race, and Jarno is going to go for the move. The AlphaTauri defending the inside line, but there's nothing he's going to be able to do, as Jarno's going to go around the outside, and there's a safety car that's being deployed.
Yeah, indeed. I did see Vencel, Gabor Tietiek and Gabor Weider all into the pit lane, and I was curious as to why they'd all come in. Clearly, there has been an instance somewhere on the circuit which has brought a safety car, which is going to work out quite nicely for Ulas Azildrim, who dropped back for reasons we're not quite sure of yet, down to the rear of the field, so he'll be able to close his way back up. But just as Jarno Opmeer had completed the move on Zoltan Boda, the safety car has been deployed here for the first time in Hungary, maybe slightly later than we were expecting, but it has joined us on the circuit, and let's be honest, probably not for the last time today. So yeah, this will be interesting now. Everyone's got to pit and go on to Ginter's, right?
Yes, some drivers have already done that. Gab is being one of them, and so is Sabajai and Gabor as well in the Aston Martin. So 3 drivers have already gone into the pits and made that call. So we're seeing already drivers maybe gambling, or is the track and the wet weather already starting to lighten up here? So that's an interesting part of this race already. And like some people have said in the into the chat right now, this safety car has actually, unfortunately for Istvan Pukki, has really kind of cost him dearly, because he's built up such a good gap and he was in kind of cruise control in a way and just doing consistently good lap times. And now that's all gone. All his hard work has been undone now.
Yeah, exactly, which is such a big shame because, like I say, he hadn't put a foot wrong throughout the race, pulling out an enormous margin, and now having to settle. And he is coming into the pit lane. I was kind of curious as to whether he wasn't coming into the pit lane. Surely everyone's going to be in. Everyone's going to be onto intermediates. Although how's that happened?
Yeah, Jarno's made a move into the pits. He must have done that. Napoleon must have made a mistake there. And a big one at that.
Surely.
So the Alfa Romeo must have just gone wide ever so slightly, had to correct it, and Jarno's has slipped through, and now he's up into P2, and now he's got 2 cars between him and Thomas Ronhaar. So that is going to be absolutely huge for this race, and obviously Ronhaar's been held up as well. So unfortunately, though, he didn't get held up too badly, and it didn't cost him too much time.
Yeah, there's an odd one there. Obviously, we don't know what's happened to Chanakinchin. We will never know. But either way, clearly the tactics weren't quite there for Napoleon. And down the order he goes into 3rd place. And like I say, I get the feeling that Ronhaar will probably fire his way through pretty quickly. But the issue for him is that Jarno Uppbeat now has just one person to pass before he's into the lead of the race. So then, let's be honest, Esteban Pukki is going to put up quite a fight, surely, to try and hang on. And to be perfectly honest, based on his pace, I think he's got enough pace to keep Jarno at bay for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely so. And, full credit to him. He's been setting some really good lap times. And if he can get his elbows out, this track is quite hard to make a move, and especially with the protection of having no DRS at this moment in time. He can maybe just focus on the exits of the final corner and really just make sure that he can protect it, defend the inside, make that car as wide as possible, and he can really cause a bit of a train and really maybe try and back Jarno Uppbeat up into the drivers behind him. But Jarno, he's not going to hold around, and as he's shown so early on in this race, it's been quite easy for him to get past every single driver in front of him so far.
Yeah, I don't think Jarno's going to hang around here. I think as soon as we go back racing, he's probably going to try and pounce into T1 as strong as possible. Someone did mention, by the way, that it might have been ghosting on the run into pit lane, which I do know can happen, and that is I think it's the only way that you can actually pass under safety car is on pit entry if you ghost. I think that might have been what happened.
That would make a lot of sense in terms of how he was able to make that move. Again, it's going to be fascinating how this safety car restart is all going to go on get us underway again, because again, a lot of these drivers are in good positions. Danny Berezno is going to be one to watch, in my opinion, in P7 right now. The Mercedes driver doing very well after that rocky start, shall we say, and he's recovered quite well.
Yeah, exactly. Danny Berezno in that 7th spot. I still, the thing is in these kind of races, the speed that you'll see someone like Jarno Uppbeat and Ronhaar and all that, they'll rise up the field. I'm not surprised to see them in these kinds of positions already, right? Because we've seen it time and time again before throughout the season. And yes, it takes Danny Berezno, it takes Ben Chabo-Conye a lot longer, potentially, so sometimes, to work their way through the field. And yet still, Ben Chabo-Conye has 3 of the podiums from the 4 races that we've done. And then if you really want to include the Texas round, the social round, then it's 4 from 5. Just because you're working your way through the pack quickly doesn't really mean very much. It was only, in my opinion, kind of like a bit of the oddity of the last round of Bahrain where we didn't get a safety car for such a long period that kind of let things happen naturally in that race and stopped some of these drivers getting an opportunity to come back into it.
Yeah, and I feel like this probably won't be the last safety car as well off this race. I still feel like we'll probably get another one. Knowing this drama of this league, it really is quite thrilling. With having this full distance race, you never know what can happen, and the safety car is finally going to be in this lap, and this is where it's going to be interesting. When does Esteban go, especially in these intermediate conditions? You would think he'd go right on the last point of the final corner. We'll go on board with him and see what he really does, but I'm going to be fascinated to see when he decides to go.
He's got to try and pick an odd point here to try and go if he wants to build up any gap to Jarno Uppbeat. Jarno will hope he goes probably out of the final corner, because at least that way he can kind of keep close. Or maybe like going around now would be good for Jarno, because he'll be able to close back up into that final braking zone. They head into the final corner. Istvan Pukki with the control of the race, and you can see it's going really wide through the final corner. Just getting ready to get a nice exit, pushes the throttle down, and we are back racing here at the Hungary ring, whilst Ulas Azilda has picked up a 5-second time penalty. Focus is up for the race lead. Jarno Uppbeat trying to get around the outside of Istvan Pukki. He's going to send it in. He's going to try and get around the outside. Pukki says, absolutely not, sir. I've led so much of this race thus far. I don't want you leading just yet. Straight down into turn 2 they go. Look to the inside for the Mercedes, and no opportunity to pass.
Yeah, again, that's really good defending from Istvan, and Danny Berezny as well. He's trying to make the move on the Red Bull, but nothing going off. He's even gone off the track there, and he's going to have to concede the position, otherwise he'll get a penalty. And that was costly there for Berezny. He's lost a place because of that. And Ben Tomakanyi, he's now up into 6th place, so he'll be very, very happy with how that's all worked out for him.
Yeah, like you say, things aren't going so great for the other Haas driver, Ulas Azilda, who finds himself at the back of the field and with a penalty. But for Benchabo Konyi, things are starting to work in his favour. You know, he said he's looking for that first win of the season. This could be it. If he picks his way through nice enough, he'll want Istvan Pukki to defend for as long as possible up here at the front. This is Zoltan Boda with Thomas Ronhaar behind. A little bit of a look you saw in the foreground coming from the Mercedes of Jarno Uppbeat. There is a move down the inside from Danny Berezny and Bence Ellis as he works his way through into 7th finally, and this time keeping it within the track limits. Yeah,
he needed to get that move done quickly, and he's done it perfectly that time around. And now Zoltan is really on the back of Napoleon here. He was really struggling. Potentially could have some front wing damage, or something is going wrong with that Alfa Romeo, because he's lost so much time to Jarno Uppbeat, because now Zoltan and Ronhaar are both going to want to get past him as quick as they possibly can. Zoltan's going to defend this move from Ronhaar and doesn't actually go for the move. And Jarno Uppbeat has gone for the lead. Sorry for that one. But Jarno Uppbeat is now taking the lead, and Thomas Ronhaar is now up into P4. He's going to try and hold it around the outside of the AlphaTauri. But the AlphaTauri's really giving this a good fight here. And Thomas is going to have to concede that position. No, he's not. He's back up into 4th. These two are neck and neck, side by side. This is brilliant racing between the pair of them. But Zoltan finally has to concede the position. That's a brilliant move there from Thomas Ronhaar.
That was good racing from the pair of them, although that'll be very frustrating for Ronhaar to have been delayed so much by Zoltan Boda, who was putting up quite a fight in his AlphaTauri. Surely Chanakinchi won't put up quite the same level of fight to try and hang on to that 3rd position, and will allow Ronhaar to pass. Just work as a team and let Ronhaar go and catch up to Istvan Pukki before that gap is too large, because there are still chances for Ronhaar to catch back up to Pukki to close back into this fight with Jarno Uppbeat. If that gap, I get the feeling if Uppbeat gets this over a second on Istvan Pukki, which to be fair it's looking like he's going to fairly shortly, I think he's gone. I think without a safety car, I don't think we're seeing him again this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely so, and the gap is now really starting to pull away here from Istvan Pukki. Jarno is doing what he does best, and that is just putting consistently good lap times in. It's a new fastest lap of this race, and he'll be smiling behind that wheel right now, and he knows what he needs to do. Just keep the car on the track, and he'll be all okay. And again, it seems to me like Napoleon and Ronhaar are now just going to work together, or Ronhaar is now going to probably try and charge his ERS up a little bit after maybe being forced to use much more of the battery than he would have wanted. And now the Alfa Romeos seem to me look like they're going to switch around, and they do so quite nicely. And Ronhaar now up into P3. Nice tactical switch between the two of them. Didn't lose any real much time from that, but that's nice teamwork there from the Alfa Romeo. Yeah, just got out of the way, allowed Ronhaar to pass. Realistically, probably should have done it on the straight, but to be fair, I don't think it's cost Ronhaar any time. That was the more important bit there, was allowing Ronhaar to pass without costing him too much time to try and catch up to the rear of the Ferrari of Istvan Pukki. 1.5 seconds down the road, but of course, no DRS in these conditions, so the 1 second gap doesn't really matter too much. Istvan Pukki's doing a great job to keep up with it. Bit of a slide there from Ronhaar, and of course, as we look a bit further down, Benchabo Konyi's feeling the pressure from Danny Berezny now. Yeah, and he's going to go for the move again. No, he thinks better off it. That was a really late decision to pull back out of that one. I thought he was going to go down the inside. Such a common place for these drivers to really do it, because that corner is so nice, which you can just attack the inside line and hook that inside curb and help rotate the car. But again, this time around, Danny Berezny can't make that move stick. But again, he's really applying the pressure to the Haas driver, who's going to be constantly checking his mirrors at this moment in time, frantically checking. But again, he's pulled just enough for the gap here, Bence, and again, he can calm down a little bit, or again, Danny Bresnay just looking ever so nicely just to maybe just test the waters each time and really let Bence know, any slip up, I'm going for that move.
Is that a tactic that you'd use? I mean, let's be honest, Ben Charbet-Condu's not a new driver. He's definitely one that's well experienced on F1 23 and generally in the F1 games. But is that a tactic that you would use to kind of like, fill that mirror really last minute, especially in conditions like this when the chance of a lockup is high, when the chance of a mistake is high?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that can really throw someone off and really put them under pressure in that way. If you see that red arrow coming down the inside, 9 times out of 10 you don't really turn in, you kind of react, and as I'm getting cut up here with some brilliant racing between the two of them. Ulrich Zildjian is now up into 13th place. This midfield battle is really starting to hype up in a way, because honestly they're all going side by side, and all this middle sector here in sector 2 is really kicking off this battle for the last point in P10. So again, Einzer is really having to check his mirrors, and these guys are really getting aggressive now and really starting to apply the pressure. And Ornas is going to go down the inside. That's a late breaking move, and he's going to make the move stick. A bit of wheel banging between the pair of them, but I think in these conditions that's to be understandable. But Ornas is now up into P12.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to remember, Zildjian's the one really out of position right now. Yes, of course, he's got the 5-second time penalty. We don't know exactly what had happened to him earlier on in the race, but he was running in second. He did qualify in second and was challenging for the race lead down to T1. Then had a problem, dropped down to the rear of the field, has used a safety car to get back into it. Now finds himself into 11th position with a move on Norbert Eisner. So that's fantastic for Ulrich Zildjian, but so it's going to be a long afternoon. We've done 11 of these 70 laps of this Hungarian Grand Prix, and it is supposed to dry up throughout the running, so maybe that will work in favour of the Turkish driver.
Yeah, definitely, and as you can see, the rain has stopped now, so there's no more rain coming onto this track. It now depends on how quick this track tends to dry up, and notoriously on this F1 game, the track does kind of dry out very, very quickly. So we might not be as far as we think away from possible dry runnings. It's going to be a question though, when do these drivers decide to go for it? Because we've obviously seen in the past lots of drivers going earlier than they should, and it's cost them time. Sometimes they go too long and they lose more places. So it's going to be a fascinating point. When do they think now's the time to go for that switch of tyres? Because it's going to be a crucial part of the race, and you can gain almost a second if you time it absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the conditions right now, is it actually raining or is it stopped raining?
Yeah, completely stopped. Yeah.
Which means that we will, like I say, we will be in slips quite soon, realistically speaking. And from what we've been told, we're not actually expecting much rain, if any, between now and the end of the race. Zolt Timbush has been into the pit lane, and I wonder if there might be a switch to slicks. Feels like it's a touch early, but you never know. Someone's got to get bold, someone's got to get brave with it, and maybe Timbo is feeling that now's the time, and it is indeed. So he's going on to the soft tyres.
Yes, and he's going to be a huge factor for every single driver in front of him. They'll be asking, I'm sure they'll have engineers for this race, a lot of these drivers. They'll be asking the engineers, what's the lap times Timbo's doing now? And that's going to be crucial feedback for when they'll know that they need to pit and switch the tyres around. Because, again, another key element is when the DRS gets enabled. That's going to be a huge factor into this race as well, because that is when the soft tyres are definitely quicker than the wets. So it's going to be an interesting part of this race when that does get enabled, and how many people all decide to go into the pits. But Jarno Opme has done a fantastic job. He's pulled over a second to Istvan Pukki, and Thomas Ronhaar has struggled to close any of the gap to Istvan Pukki. It's always been around that 1.2, 1.1 second range, and he's not really been any time, and none of these drivers inside the top 3 at least have decided to pit, and everybody else behind them also following suit and not pitting. And Jarno Opme setting another fastest lap of this race. So let's see what Timbo does on his lap, because that's going to be a crucial factor in this race. If he goes the fastest lap, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm very interested to see whether, like, if Ronhaar wants to throw himself right back into this race, then surely he's got to pit slightly early, go for the undercut. Although I will say, whilst Jarno Opme has been firing in fastest laps the last couple of laps, he is now being caught. DRS is enabled, so I'm assuming pit lane this time will be very, 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 very busy. And Chanakinchi is going to get really caught out here in 4th position because he's right behind his teammate, although he's built the gap now to 3 seconds. I think he's maybe intentionally going to start dropping back just a touch.
Yeah, definitely so. And it's going to be, this pit lane is going to be absolutely busy. Rammed to the top. Luckily, I think for Danny Bresnay, he's got just enough of a gap that he won't get held up into the pit. So that's going to be a perfect opportunity for Mercedes. But on the other hand, Alfa Romeo, 3rd and 4th, the gap could just be about enough here that Napoleon doesn't get affected. So it's going to be an interesting part because Alfa Romeo are doing a great job at this moment in time and they're scoring big points for their championship.
Yeah, Napoleon will most certainly want quite a short stop for Ron Har. There's absolutely no shock. Jarno Opmeer, Istvan Pukki, Thomas Ron Har. Surely, Chanakinchi, yeah, literally, they're all just coming to the pit lane. If you're staying out on intermediates right now, you're basically signing your race off. But Napoleon Bonaparte, by the way, we believe is Chanakinchi. He was Optimus Prime last round, so at least he's doing something slightly different when it comes to the name. As Jarno Opmeer goes out onto the hard tyres.
Yes, and everybody else behind him is going for the mediums. So Opmeer is obviously going to go for a longer stint on these hard compounded tyres, but then be quicker towards the end of this race. It's going to be an interesting point to see how long he does stay out for and how long he can actually hold up Istvan Pukki and Thomas Ron Har. But Thomas has had an unbelievable pit stop, by the way. He's gained a lot of time from that, and he's now in the DRS range of Istvan Pukki. So this is absolutely essential. So the Alfa Romeo team has done an unbelievable pit job, and gained Ron Har at least a couple attempts there. I think it's more than that to get into the DRS range of Istvan Pukki.
And bearing in mind that lap that we just saw come in from Timbo, had Ron Har pit 1 lap earlier, I think he would be so far in the race lead right now. I like surely he'd be seconds down the road. Bearing in mind he had a really good stop, and he would have been really taking advantage of the slicks because it was drying up. It was dry. I think it was dry enough on that on the previous lap for the slick tyres, as we've seen been proven by Timbo. But then obviously you'd have to work your way through a couple of intermediate runners as well, so that could be a little bit sketchy. Right now, what we do know is we've got the top 3 separated by just over a second. Jarno Opmeer, Istvan Pukki, and Thomas Ron Har. The gap back to Zoltan Boda, though, 5 seconds, and this group has quite some strength in it. Ben Szabo Konyi, obviously Chanakinchi dropping back to 6th position throughout the pit stops, and Danny Berezhny, who we're looking at here, on soft tyres, interestingly, but in 7th spot.
Yeah, and he's going to really attack these opening laps. These are all going to sort of be qualifying laps for Danny Berezhny in a sense. He's really going to want to push as hard as he possibly can and really dispatch the likes of Chanakinchi, Ben Szabo Konyi, Zoltan really, really quickly and make sure he can really close up to that 5-second gap ahead of him to Thomas Ron Har, because when he does pit again, it's going to be a lot earlier than the drivers all in front of him who are on their mediums and the hard tyres. So it's an interesting strategy choice, but a brave one as well, I'd say, from Danny Berezhny, because you'd think he would have probably maybe opted to go for the medium tyres.
Indeed, I do see the request for me to become full meteorologist for the rest of the race. What we have as weather for the end of the race is overcast, clear, and clear. So we're not actually expecting any rain between now and the end of the race. We're expecting this one to run dry from now. We've started out, we've done our rain in the early stages. Everyone always complains about how these are all really rain affected. So we've done our rain now, we've got it out of the way. As Danny Berezhny gets down the inside of the Alfa Romeo and gets his way past Chanakinchi, does not fight into the penultimate corner.
Yeah, that's a nice easy move there from Danny Berezhny, and Chanakinchi just knows he can't really do anything about that, and Thomas Ron Har setting the fastest lap of the race. And I do wonder now, when will Thomas make that move on Istvan Pukki? But Pukki as well doing a good job at this moment in time, holding him up. And we've got Ben Szabo Konyi going down the inside into turn 1, maybe gone a little bit too late on the brakes then, gone deep, and that's going to cost him, and Danny Berezhny is going to get the pair of them. A brilliant opportunistic move, a nice switchback, and that is him up into 4th place. Brilliant stuff there from Danny Berezhny.
Yeah, that was honestly fantastic. It shows the quality of Berezhny, and like you say, we saw some quality from him just yesterday, and we're starting to see it once again as side by side between Gabor Takash and Norbert Szabo Konyi, and of course it is the Williams driver working his way now up into 9th position, obviously running those soft compound tyres. Quite a large switch. It is weird seeing the entire tower, mediums, mostly mediums, some softs, and the single hard tyre runner is Jarno Opmeer. And look at those gaps.
It's absolutely frightening how close they are, and Jarno's doing a good job at this moment in time just to maintain Istvan Pukki and Ronha behind, because for him it's absolutely essential how long he can keep these guys behind, because his hard tyres are only going to get better as this race progresses, while the mediums are still not in their peak powers at this moment in time, but they're much quicker than the hards. And now we're going to see the switch for the lead potentially as Istvan Pukki goes down the inside. It's a simple move there for Istvan, but Thomas again, is he going to try and follow him through? He certainly is going to try, but Jarno again is keeping his elbows out, and he's going to make this as difficult as possible for Ronha. Really good racing between the two. Ronha's going to try and go around the outside. He's got the better grip at this moment in time. He'll have the inside corner. That's brilliantly done, but Jarno still hasn't given this up yet. They're still side by side. This is absolutely fascinating stuff, but again, Jarno somehow, some way, keeps Ronha behind. Brilliant stuff from the Dutchman.
Yeah, I think he might turn the car up as much as possible to try and keep Ronha at bay there. Picked up a little bit of a slipstream from Istvan Pukki, just courtesy of the side of the road that he was on, and it just allowed him to keep Ronha at bay. I think that one might be a little trickier coming down to the T1, and I'd suggest that Ronha will probably make his way past fairly sharpish. But of course, these two clearly running very different strategies with how they're playing these dry conditions that are expected until the end of the race. Maybe Jarno Uppmeer trying to cut out a pit stop, maybe planning on coming back into this one a little bit later on in the race. Maybe in that sense being behind Ronha and just trying to keep close. Maybe that's going to be his game plan. But as they head back out onto the start-finish straight to complete the 18th lap of 70, the move will go Ronha's way down the inside into T1, and Ronha will clear Jarno Uppmeer into second place. Gone a little bit too deep though. Should be able to clear it on the exit.
Yeah, the marbles into turn one has been a really big factor. That's what I'm noticing here on the tyres. They're picking up a lot of marbles and it's making them lose a lot of grip. And this has given the opportunity for Jarno Uppmeer to fight this back, and he's going to fight this with all his might. But again, it's just the grip of those mediums at this moment in time that Jarno really can't do anything about it. But now this is going to be a crucial factor in this race. Thomas definitely getting a warning for that exceeding of track limits there. Could be his first one. I'm not too sure on that. But again, this is going to be a crucial part in this race. How long can Uppmeer hold on to these medium runners in front of him? And look at the gap as well, by the way. Danny Berezne, he's already closing in 2 seconds thanks to all this fighting. And this is perfect for the Mercedes team because they'll want Danny Berezne to close up and really try and save his tyres as much as possible once he does so.
Yeah, also Denny Benson, there's the next one to pick up track limit penalties, as Ronha has as well. So there goes your question as to whether it was his first exceeding of track limits. The answer to that was no, and even if it was, he picked up one pretty swift after that one, so he'll have to deal with a time penalty. Fair enough, is what it is. I'm pretty sure you won't be the last driver to have picked one up. Gap growing now out to 0.7 of a second on Jarno Uppmeer as Thomas Ronha jumps into the slipstream of Istvan Pukki down into the first corner. And I'm pretty sure that Ronha will clear Pukki in the next lap down into T1, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time, and we're still seeing more moves in the background. A few drivers have decided to pit again. It's Kanakinshi all the way down in 18th now. I wonder if he maybe picked up a little bit of damage because he was on the medium tyres, I do believe. So it might have been a little bit of an accident, which has cost him quite dearly, and he's been forced into an early pit stop. So he'll be one of those drivers who will be relying on a safety car potentially to really get him back into this race.
Yeah, absolutely, and unfortunately, that's sometimes how it goes in these races. Just a bit of a shame, but you never know. These are long. I would still expect there to be a safety car, although with it being dry, and with everyone having made their pit stop onto the slick tyres, with the gaps having grown, with the field being spread out a little bit more, the chance of a safety car goes down every single lap. Jarno Uppmeer's doing an incredible job, by the way, to keep himself within DRS range, and I would suspect that Ronha will potentially pass Istvan Pukki, but Pukki's doing a really good job at keeping that gap to around about 0.4 of a second coming out onto the start-finish straight, and it only closes down by around a tenth or so by the time they get down into T1.
Yeah, definitely, and it's been quite interesting to see how this has already unfolded. Here's a bit of some ERS information. Ronha as well is struggling compared to Istvan Pukki, who's doing a really good job. He's up to around 80%, 90% now. on his ERS. So he's doing a really good
safety
job
car.
of just looking at it. Now we've got a safety car. David Vinch is out of this race, and like I said, Kanakinchi, he needed that safety car to get him back in the race, and look what's happened. He's got the safety car that he was after.
Just to clarify once more, I do not believe in the commentator's curse, although I will say there was quite a coincidence between me saying there probably won't be a safety car and I don't really see it, and then there being a safety car out. I do see the coincidence, all right? I still don't believe in the commentator's curse, but for those that still are like, Lewis, you're crazy, I get it, all right? I get it. This is very interesting, like you say. Right now, for those drivers up here, is anyone going to come into the pit lane? Surely not after 6 laps.
Definitely not. I don't think so. And specifically Jarno, I think it'd be silly for him to come into the pits. But hey, I don't know anything apparently. He goes into the pits as well. So all 3 of these drivers all decide to go into the pits. And I've got to believe that Danny Brosnay also will follow, and he does. So this is going to be an interesting point of the race now. What do these tyres all go for? These drivers all go for? What tyres do they select? It's going to be Esteban Pukki on the softs, Jarno Ottme on the softs, and Thomas Ronhart on the softs. So that's an interesting strategy call from all these drivers. They're going to go really aggressive now and really try and pull away potentially. But let's just give credit to Esteban Pukki, by the way. He's done a brilliant job so far in this race. Really kept Ronhart behind, manages his ERS brilliantly. And it's going to be an interesting battle now between these 3 drivers in particular. Danny Brosnay now down into 5th because Ulnas Zildjian decides to stay out on some old medium tyres, whereas Danny Brosnay goes for the medium. So this is going to be interesting now with the strategy.
Yeah, obviously Ulnas Zildjian trying to throw himself back into the fight with his teammate. Obviously Haas, the team that are up there, that are closest in the championship to the Mercedes team. Those obviously Jarno Ottme and Danny Brosnay leading the team's championship. I still think realistically, they're by far the favourites, but when you get the likes of Ulnas Zildjian, when you get the likes of Bench Darbo Konyi, they can throw themselves back into the mix with a couple of decent bits of strategy and just consistent driving. It's how they've kind of thrown themselves back into it quite a few times. Bench Darbo Konyi had the most understated drive that I think I've seen for quite a while back in Bahrain. We barely talked about him all race, and he still finished on the podium. Mostly because our eyes were glued to the Jarno Ottme Ronhart battle, which I get the feeling we're probably going to be glued to quite a bit now, as the pair of them will line up for this race restart on the same compound of tyre behind Esteban Pukki. This will be crazy.
Yes, this is going to be a real good battle. Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen-esque once again. We're going to see it, but this time it's an Alfa Romeo and a Mercedes instead of a Red Bull and a Mercedes. So that's it. It's going to be an interesting one in terms of how this all really unfolds. We've seen the history of these 2. They are not afraid to get the elbows out between each other. Now, after the esports season, there's obviously had a little bit of a hiccup in terms of the action being halted. I'm going to be interested to see how these 2 really get going here once again, because surely Jarno is going to want to be fighting for this win. Although it's going to be an interesting point to make here. Does Jarno go as aggressive as he might have possibly needs to now? Because Ronhart does have a penalty. So it's an interesting point to think about, because, again, that 3-second penalty is going to be quite costly for Ronhart if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, let's be honest, between these 2, regardless of penalty or not, let's be honest, they just want to finish in front of. Whether there is a penalty or what, it doesn't matter. They just want to be ahead on the circuit. They do not want to look at the rear of the other's car. They want to be ahead of it. And so in that sense, whilst from a perfectly logical point of view, if Ronhart got past Esteban Pukki, Jarno Ottme then got through as well. Ottme just followed Ronhart until the end of the race and picked up the race victory, courtesy of the time penalty. From a logical and statistical point of view, that makes perfect sense. Is that going to be what's going to happen? Absolutely not. These 2 will fight each other to the absolute limit.
Definitely, and just for everybody to see, that is the penalties for everybody who is wondering. 2 drivers on 3 seconds, and that Red Bull of AMS Okonski is on 6 seconds. So it's quite an interesting point to keep in mind for a lot of these drivers. I'll keep the tyre display on your screen so you'll know what everybody's on. But it's quite an interesting point to make now. A lot of these drivers, some have stayed out on the mediums, some have gone for fresh mediums, and a lot of these drivers have gone for the fresh softs. So in terms of the strategy now, we've seen some hints from Badgerman that mediums can make it to the end from here apparently. But that'll be some tyre nursing to make it to the end from here, surely.
That sounds like a really not very fun way to spend the next hour or no thank you. Safety car coming in though. Esteban Pukki for the second time this race with the control of the grid. He went out wide in the final corner and then brought it back into the apex. He's going to do exactly the same thing, so he'll punch it about halfway around the corner and lead down into the first corner. Ron Haar is trying to get the move done as soon as possible, and actually Esteban Pukki is leaving it as late as possible, and still waiting and waiting and waiting. Finally, we get racing once again into the Hungary, and for Ron Haar, that was really not very good from him, and he's already going to be passed by Jarno Opmeer into the first corner. Unless he can be brave, unless he can hang it around the outside, he might just be able to fend off Jarno Opmeer here as they begin their drive down the hill towards turn 2. It's Jarno Opmeer to the outside, it's Thomas Ron Haar to the inside, leaning on each other as they head their way through the second corner and down towards the fast kink at T3. They've been side by side between here before this race. They continue their side by side, and Jarno Opmeer with a solid restart there works his way up in the second position.
Yeah, brilliant stuff from Opmeer, and I was on board with Ron Hart, and he just got caught napping a little bit there, sleeping on that restart. He got caught out by how late Esteban Pukki decided to go. Ben Scorbacani going down the inside into the chicane. He's now up into P6. A brilliant start from the Haas driver on those fresh soft compounded tyres. It's a question to me now, how long can Ulnas hold on in P5 on these medium tyres? Because he's just falling away from Danny Bresnay, who's on fresh mediums. So this is not a good sign for any driver who'd opted to stay out on those medium tyres.
Yeah, the big one for Ulas is he's got to let his teammate through as soon as possible, because Ben Charbot-Cogny will desperately want to drive his way up to the rear end of the two Mercedes, the Alfa Romeo and the Ferrari that lead the field. Gabar Ticic, who we're looking at here, as you've got Alroots behind in the Alpine, you've got Timbo just behind the rear end of that, and Norbert Eisner as well at the rear of the field. Obviously, after the restart, it's all tight once more as we head our way down into T1 on the second lap after the restart. There was a big send behind all that. I think that might have been our old mate Napoleon Bonaparte, of course, Chanakinchi, working his way past Shenagaratski.
Yeah, it's a great move as well from the Alfa Romeo driver, doing everything that he needs to do right now and just make those moves as quick as possible. Timbo in the background as well, making a move. I think Tamas has made a little bit of a mistake, the Alpine driver. He dropped 2 positions. So maybe a little bit of an error on his behalf. But this battle for the lead is absolutely breathtaking stuff, because look at Ron, look at the gap for the lead here. They're separated by less than 2 tenths between each other right now. One mistake and the driver behind him is just going to capitalize on it. This is really captivating stuff from all 3 drivers right now, and Danny Bresnay, full credit to him, on fresh mediums is doing a brilliant job to keep up with these fresh soft runners.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is like touring car level gaps. When you tune on to the British Touring Car Championship to supercars and all that, these are the kind of gaps you expect in that. 2 tenths, 3 tenths, half a second. You got 4 cars basically within 1 second. Obviously, we are used to seeing that kind of in esports racing over here in the F1 side of things. So fair enough, it's not that much of a shock, but it's just incredible to see once more. It just shocks the system every time you see it. Esteban Pukki continues to lead after the 25th lap of running here at the Hungary. As an massive send to the inside, Norbert Charbot-Cogny trying to get his way past Shenagaratski, the Red Bull car, going down into the first corner. He's got Gab behind him and was unable to successfully make that pass.
Yeah, it's good stuff, good moves again, all around. It's brilliant. This Hungarian circuit is really inviting these overtakes, and now the DRS has been enabled. It's going to be even more interesting to see when do these drivers opt for these moves, because they're all so close. I feel like if one driver decides to go for a move in this train, the other driver is going to have to be forced into going for it. So we could see multiple moves being made all at one point. And look how close they are through this middle sector. Kanakinchi is right up on the back of the Red Bull of Bent. And again, he's going to be checking his mirrors here, because on these soft tyres, although they do drop off fairly quickly around here, you can't afford to let him go through, but he's going to go for any gap he sees. And I feel like we could see multiple moves being made on this straight here if drivers aren't careful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all well and good focusing on the car ahead and trying to make your way past that one, but if you're not careful, you will be passed by the car behind. And when that happens, that's when you get freight train. As here comes the move, Benzolis getting his way past Danny Benzer, of course, our first pole sitter in the Ironman League, the Alpine there, and the door is now open for Chanakinchi to tick both of them off before they leave the first corner and head their way down into the second turn. So excellent stuff there from Chanakinchi, of course. Napoleon Bonaparte now into 9th position. I prefer his previous name, I'm not going to lie. I prefer Optimus Prime. I could make more jokes about it. It feels wrong making jokes.
And like I mentioned, though, it was like, again, Chanakinchi made 2 moves there because he forced the Red Bull there to make the move, and again he took up the opportunity to get both of them. That's how easy it can be if you really do put the pressure on, but you've got to be conservative with your ERS around here because you don't really get that much back around here. You've got to be very manageable and know when is the right time to strike, because again, if you use too much ERS you'll be vulnerable to the cars behind and you'll just get picked off. It's such a key asset in this game, is really managing that ERS, and that's why you see the top drivers at the start who again are doing a brilliant job of managing, but they're also making the moves at the right time. And again, Ronhar at this moment in time is 1.5 tenths behind Jarno Opmeer, and we're going to see Jarno go a move around the outside of Istvan Pukki, but he's got onto the marbles there, and that's going to cost him time on the exit. And here we go, a side by side back again, and Thomas is going to make a move around the outside. That is ridiculous from Thomas Ronhar. Is he going to get the inside line? No, he is not, but he's up into P2 and he'll be very happy with that one.
Jarno Opmeer nearly made that 3 wide going down into T2, which I was going to say was probably one of the more unwise things that I've seen Jarno Opmeer do. Thankfully, obviously, he's not that kind of driver. Backed out of it, let the 2 of them run wide. Except, third position's fine for now. He'll definitely come back. There'll be opportunities for Jarno Opmeer to work his way through. Got a rear gunner now in Danny Berezhny, who I do not believe is trying to make these medium tyres go to the checkered flag. I believe there is going to be an extra pit stop in there for him, but 6 laps running on these soft compound tyres for Istvan Pukki, for Ronhar, for Opmeer, and for Benjabo Konyi, who, let's not count out, has also joined the rear end of this fight. So it's a battle in the top 5, all 5 of them separated by just over a second and a half, as we build to quite an incredible race here at the Hungaroring, out to complete the 28th laps of proceedings. And Istvan Pukki is going to feel the pressure here. I think Ronhar might be making the move. They head down into the first corner with DRS wide open. Ronhar sweeps his way through into the race lead. Now Jarno Opmeer might get a little bit more desperate.
Yeah, definitely, and that's again a really nice move from Ronhar. He's been planning this move for the past few laps, and you've just seen it in full effect now. We've also got a move in the background for P9. The Williams getting back in front of the Red Bull on older medium tyres. So that's quite an interesting point in this race. Why Bence is starting to drop back. Maybe he might have picked up some front wing damage. Who knows? But the Red Bull of Bence is really starting to struggle at this moment in time.
Oh, and this goes from bad to worse for the other Red Bull as well. Shena Garachki picking up a time penalty for multiple track excursions. Again, when I said that some of the drivers that have got track excursion penalties, how they will not be the last one to get them. Yeah, I think we're going to see quite a few around here. I always struggle with keeping it within the track limits around here, mostly because of turn 4, let's be honest. But even this run, the right-hander going out of the second sector, you can get a track cut there. There's quite a lot of place around here where you can just pick up the odd one just because of the high commitment of this circuit.
Yeah, that's a great point to make. And I think it's also a good point to bring up now is I think the mediums might be quicker than the softs. Because Danny Berezhny is right onto the back of Jarno Opmeer now, and it seems to me that Danny is looking a little bit more comfortable compared to Jarno, and just noticing in these past couple of laps, I think we wouldn't be too far, if I'm not mistaken, from maybe seeing some soft runners come into the pit in the next, I would say, 3-4 laps, possibly. We'll have to keep a close eye on that. I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but when you're seeing a medium runner right behind you of Danny Berezhny, applying the pressure to his teammate, you've got to wonder, Jarno won't really want to hang around on these softs any longer.
I mean, I feel if I were on the softs, I'd want to go. If they have the life, I would want to go about 10 laps longer, and then do a 30-lap stint on the mediums to see the end of the race. That's kind of where I think the strategy might be. But again, no idea. This is the whole thing with this kind of racing, is that it's 100% distance racing, which, let's be honest, for the most part, especially when it comes to online racing, is uncommon. You know, a lot of these drivers haven't really done it. Ron Har was saying when he joined us for the social race in Texas, when we weren't doing an official round because of various things. Not talking about, it's fine. But yeah, we did, you know, again a full distance race, and he was saying it was his first ever online full distance race. It's not common to do this.
Definitely not, and you know, it's an interesting side of it as well, the 100% distance, because you've got them, your tyres last a little bit longer, you're managing it a little bit differently as well. So it's quite an interesting aspect, but again, Danny Bresnay, I think is just in a zone right now where he's just managing the ERS, managing the tyres, just literally putting the lap times and probably trying to make these mediums last as long as he possibly can to get to the softs and be the quickest driver on the track. And that will be an interesting part of it as well, because Danny could really end up winning this race, if you think about it, because if Jarno and Esteban and Thomas are all on the softs, you know, on medium, sorry, when they do pit, of course, it's surely a no-brainer that Danny Bresnay could go on to win this race.
I mean, potentially. I wouldn't be shocked if Bresnay won. He has been absolutely sensational this season. Like I said, but towards the end of 2023, some of the drives that I was seeing coming out of Bresnay, and you know, obviously here at the start of 2024. It's so impressive to see. I was going to say, yeah, for a lot of these drivers, this will be the first race that they've done this year. That's not true, because I know quite a few of them would have done PSGL the other night. But yeah, for a lot of them, they're wanting to start the season on an absolute high. Right now, with the tyres they're on, I do believe Danny Bresnay might be in, as you've been saying, I think he might be in the best position, because he's on the medium tyres. The medium tyres are looking like they're getting a little bit faster than the softs. Even if the soft tyre runners, as the yellow flag comes out in the third and final sector, not causing a safety car just yet, it's fine. We'll keep our eye on that. If their plan is to go to lap 18, pit and go on the mediums to the end of the race, Danny Bresnay could do the same thing. But he just might be faster towards the end of that lap 18 or whatever of this stint.
Exactly, and it's going to be interesting to see. But I think at this moment in time, we're not seeing really any moves at this point of the race. It just seemed to me that everybody's in that tyre management phase where they're just looking after their tyres and not really wanting to push, not really wanting to overtake, unless someone makes a huge error, for example. They're not really going to be, we're not going to see many overtakes at this point in the race. It's halfway distance near enough, and it's going to be quite interesting to see who jumps the gun first. But Thomas is really starting to try and test the waters of pulling this gap. He's nearly at a second here. Istvan Pukki, there we go. It's now gapped to a second. Istvan is starting to struggle on these soft tyres. I think he hasn't been being able to manage his tyres as well as Ron Har, who's been sitting behind him for so many laps, which has been utilised quite effectively to his gain here.
Yeah, and I think this is what's going to start kicking off the moves, right? The fact that that gap gets to over a second, if it remains at over a second for the entire run of this lap, maybe even grows a little bit more. Obviously, Istvan Pukki's not going to have DRS. I think that's the signal for Jarno Opmeer to be like, right, we need to clear this dude and maybe start pushing a little bit more. If you've got any tyre life, but again, if you're playing the long game, if you're trying to get these tyres to go a lot further, pushing hard now will cost quite a price later on. If you can underdrive the car now to a certain degree and look after the tyres, then you'll be paying that out later on in the stint. Obviously, we all know that's how it works, but it's just the amount that you get cost if you start pushing. If you push too hard now, if you overheat the tyres, if you overdrive them now, the cost later on in the stint is so great. It's all about playing the long game, and it is one of the hardest things to do in racing is play that long game.
Definitely, that's an excellent point to make as well, and I think Jarno is struggling as well. It's not just because some people have been saying that Istvan Pukki is just not as quick. I think Jarno is also just as struggling. He nearly lost a second to Istvan, and now I think we're going to see a switch between the Mercedes, because Danny Bresnay is right on the tail now of Jarno Opmeer. I think we could see a switch into this corner here coming up. It would make the most logical sense, but again, no switching around at this moment in time. Jarno Opmeer clearly is seeming comfortable just to keep Danny Bresnay behind at this moment in time. But if you're Bresnay, surely you're screaming, let me go. Yeah,
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I'm sure what they're doing, they're aware as to how they're running their strategy, I guess, is probably the best way of putting it. Like, they know what they're doing, and I mean that in the sense of, they've played the team game quite a few times this season. Yes, y'all know what, my fans, it's fine. I'm not going into it. We're not going into it. It's fine. But yeah, they've played the team game a couple of times this season. So if they're not playing the team game now, then it's for good reason. If you get where I'm coming from, like, maybe they're feeling like Danny Berezne's not actually faster than Jano Opmeer. It's just that Jano's being slowed down by Esteban Pukki, at which point, if they get Danny Berezne ahead, then Berezne will get past Pukki, and then have to switch back anyway. So what's the point? So maybe there's something like that. I don't know. They're in communication. They'll probably be discussing it between the pair of them, and we'll see if this time there is going to be a switch. We'll see if Berezne looks out going down to the first corner. I think it might be the switch, though, for second position, because Jano Opmeer is going to try and get his way past Esteban Pukki around the outside of T1. Absolutely sensational move there from Jano Opmeer, and it's opened up the opportunity for Danny Berezne to come through, and there is the team game. Look at that. Now, I did complain about various things in Interlagos. There is nothing to complain about there. That was perfect. Got down the inside of Esteban Pukki. Jano Opmeer cleared the position, opened the door for Berezne. As soon as Berezne had the advantage, Jano Opmeer let him go through. That was incredible.
Yeah, brilliant teamwork from the pair of them, but it was quite interesting to me. It seems like Jano was using his ERS on the main straight, and so was Berezne. It seemed the plan was there to get both of them through, and then let Berezne go through on the outside. That was brilliant communication, and unless it wasn't planned, but to me it definitely looked like it at the end, because that was sensational stuff from Berezne to pull it off. But now look at the pace he's got. He's got the clean air now, and he can really utilise his medium tyres, and he is going to go on a massive charge and really close this gap. He's nearly got out of the DRS range to Opmeer already, the space of a few corners. So that just shows you the grip and the pace of these medium tyres and the wear that the soft compounder tyres are on now. It's a matter of just holding on for Opmeer as long as he possibly can. He's run out of VRS. You just saw there his red light was flashing. So it's now, how long can Opmeer hold on to Berezne? And I don't think he'll be able to hold on by the end of Sector 2 at least.
Oh, Chamakinchi speeding in the pit lane. Naughty boy. Yeah, obviously that was just coming into pit lane there for the Alfa Romeo. Maybe he's going to go on to medium tyres, maybe hards. Surely mediums will get to the end. Well, mediums will get to the end from here if they were getting to the end earlier. So I'm assuming it'll be mediums trying to go and see the checker flag with the one final stop. But either way, a 5-second time penalty in doing so is not going to be too pleasant. Honestly, unbelievable. From Danny Berezne there to have closed up so quickly to the rear end of Ronha. And like you were saying, I'm thinking there might be a move into T1 here for Berezne. Maybe that's a little bit too early, but it's this the double hairpin sequence is where he's going to really close up surely to the back of Ronha.
Yeah, I don't see it being awfully long before Berezne does get that move done on Ronha. I just wonder now, when does Ronha decide to pit? I think it could be lap 40, which to me wouldn't be too bad of a suggestion for them to pit. We've got a retirement. And it's a safety car has been deployed again. So this is absolutely huge now for this race. And this could really, in my opinion, could cost Danny Berezne.
Yeah, I mean, this is horrible for Mercedes, because what decision do you make if you're Mercedes, right? If you bring Berezne in it's going to be horrible for one of them, because Ronha's going to pit. Right, there's absolutely. I think Ronha's going to pit, and we'll go into the mediums. I think Jano Opmeer, Esteban Pukki, Ben Charbonneau, they're all going to pit. They're all going to go into the mediums. Zoltan Boda and the rest of the field, they're already in pit lane, by the way. So this could work out horribly for all of these drivers. This has blown the race wide open, and it has thrown an unbelievable advantage to Zoltan Boda and to Ulas Zilderin.
Yeah, this is absolutely crazy how this is already going to unfold now, because all these drivers are going to be going into the pits, going on those fresh tyres, and like you mentioned, Zoltan on fresh hards, Ulas on fresh mediums. This is going to really get feisty between everybody on this grid, and just wonder now, with the speed of the safety car, everybody's going to catch up. They're all going to have to pit. So this is going to be fascinating how this all really unfolds, and I for one can't wait for this safety car restart and how it's all going to unfold, because it's going to be absolutely crazy in terms of how it's all going to kick off. And I think we could see Jano Opmeer drop considerable amount of places here, because this is going to be really costly pit stop for Jarno. Unfortunately, we just got some tyre performance indicator there. The Jarno's softs are actually doing quite a good job. They're around 30% on the front left was his worst, and Danny Beresne was on to 22%. So the mediums were in a really good position at that point in the race, whereas the mediums were really getting towards the end of their life.
As much as this is going to be bad for Jarno Opmeer, he's going to start from the rear of the field, right? Because he's going to drop back behind Esteban Pukki, Ben Charbonnet anyway. So they're all going to come into the pit lane. The top 5, Zoltan Boda in his AlphaTauri will take over the race lead. Ulas Yildirim, already a winner this season, will now head into 2nd position. And again, the fascination as to how this one is going to unfold builds as those drivers will depart the pit lane. Obviously, all 5 of them together, and somehow Jarno Opmeer's dropped back behind. How's he done that?
I don't know. But
What's happened?
That is fascinating. It must have been a bad pit stop for Esteban Pukki there, surely. Or he must have been held on the exit, but I can't think how. Jarno Opmeer has not lost a single place out of all of that.
What's the order in the pit lane? Is it Mercedes, then Ferrari, then Red Bull? Like, back. Because the thing is if the Ferrari Esteban Pukki is sat there in his box, and obviously you've got Danny Beresne and then Jarno Opmeer. If Jarno Opmeer is in the lane, then Esteban Pukki can't leave his box. I think it's Ferrari, and like the next box along is Mercedes.
Yeah, it must be, and I think maybe it could be wrong here that maybe Jarno might have backed up slightly, slowed down coming into the pit entry as well. Might have that been a factor? I'm not too sure. But again, that would be an interesting one to see on his highlights after this race. Maybe if he joins, get an interview, you can maybe ask him about that, because that's going to be quite a huge part of this race now. Because if he went behind Esteban Pukki, who's on fresh soft compounded tyres again, that could have been a decisive factor into this race as well.
I think Esteban Pukki going onto the soft compound tyre is I don't want to be that guy, but I thought that's not a great call. Because the thing is, I don't believe you're getting to the end of the race on those soft compounds of tyres, and I think you can do on the mediums. At least the likes of Ulas Yildirim certainly can. But softs from here, surely not. But Danny Beresne is on the soft, so who really knows? Into the final corner they're going to go. Zoltan Boda then with the control of the race, and for the first restart in this one, it is not Esteban Pukki with the control. Ulas Yildirim will want to try and clear Zoltan Boda as quick as possible. Already gets the overlap as we head out onto the start-finish straight, and look at how tight we're going. 3 and 4 wide before we've even got back to racing, as now Zoltan Boda slaps his right foot down on the throttle pedal, and we are back racing at the Hungaroring. Plenty of side-by-side behind as Ron Haar, Shenegaratsky, some big sense in the background of Shenegaratsky, who's gone out wide in his Red Bull Racing car. Zoltan Boda continues to hold the race lead as plenty of side-by-side in the mid-pack. Ron Haar having to fend off. Opmeer is on the inside. You've got Timbo, who's had a big slide going through T2, and straight around the outside of all of that goes Danny Beresne. Jarno Opmeer into 7th, Ron Haar 8th, but Danny Beresne into 9th.
Yeah, I do not know how Ron Haar did not end up spun around and had front wing damage there. That was some good car control there from Thomas. But my, that was absolutely breathtaking stuff on the exit of turn 1. Somehow no real big collisions. All drivers managed to keep it under control, and fair play to Timbo as well. He could have really spun around, but he managed to keep that car under control. But that was absolutely breathtaking stuff. And fair play to Zoltan as well. He got a very good safety car restart off that. But now Unas is going to really try and go for that move and get past him as quick as he possibly can. And Jarno Opmeer now up into 6th position. I think there's been a mistake from somebody, because I just saw that his name dropped down the order, but I didn't catch who.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but either way, like I say, on this restart, 1 lap complete after the restart, just 31 left to go. Jarno Opmeer will try and clear the Aston Martin of Norbert Charbonnet, and it should be easily done down into T1. Obviously, Ron Haar's going to try and find his way through straight down the inside of the Aston Martin at T1, just to keep to the rear end of Jarno Opmeer. Do remember that Ron Haar has a 3-second time penalty for track limit excursions. As to the inside, Danny Beresne is going to try and go to get past the Aston Martin as well, unable to do so into T2 or to the outside of T3, and not going to tick that one off just yet.
Yeah, you've got to be careful as well, Danny Beresne. Don't want to really get involved in an accident, but he's going to try. He's braving it down the inside, but he knows it's so costly. Him being behind Norby every single lap, every single corner he's getting held up here could be costly, because if Jarno and Thomas somehow dispatch off the Williams in front, it could be a massive gap that can form. And Danny obviously on the fresh softs, he's got to utilize these. Remember, he can't afford to hang about. And here we go, he's going to go down the inside now, easy as you like, really. Norby is going to try and put up a bit of a fight, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it. And Esteban Pukki's going to follow him through. Bit of contact between the Aston Martin and the Ferrari there, and Norby somehow holds on.
Yeah, and I do believe there's been a move for the race lead as well. Ulas Yildirim will take over the front of the field here with 30 laps left to go. The harsh driver, medium tyres, looking to try and get to the end of the race. Zoltan Boda is absolutely going to the end of the race. And at what stage will they be caught by this group? Down the inside of Gabor Takash goes Jarno Opmeer into 4th position now. Ronhard will try and follow through as quick as possible. He's way too far off the back end of the Williams to make anything stick. Out wide going into T2 to find that apex goes Jarno Opmeer. Ben Eiles is next for the Mercedes driver, and I'm pretty sure will find his way through, maybe into the what was it, turn 13, the third to last corner, somewhere down that end of the track. That might be where Jarno Opmeer works his way through into the 3rd position.
Yeah, Thomas Ronhart again extending off that fast left-hander. Once again, it's really costing him. I've noticed he's gone off a few times there, and that is where he's picking up a lot of these warnings, even if he maybe had a case towards the stewards. And it's Jarno Opmeer, by the way, he's just made another move through the middle of Sector 2. Just cut me up there. Brilliant stuff from the Dutchman. Nicely done. He's now up into P3. But like I was saying, that fast left-hander really seems to be costing drivers a lot. And Thomas in particular seeming to be caught out a lot through that corner.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Ronhard did that about 3 or 4 corners before I thought he was going to. So, bam, up into the 3rd position he goes. Ulas Yildirim sets the fastest lap of the race. Well, I get the feeling that one might change into the hands of Jarno Opmeer this lap. Dependent as to when he catches Zoltan Boda. Inside line being taken from Ronhard, now up into 5th position. Danny Berezhny is going to follow him through. Of course, Berezhny on the soft tyres as he works his way through it with the outside of T2 that he'll need to commit to that one. Throws the car in as hard as he possibly can. Meets the apex and says thank you very much. The inside line being taken though from Mr. Van Pukki as they head on this short stretch up towards T4, and he himself will clear Gabor Takash.
Yeah, Norby, by the way, he's just reset to track. I think he just had a bit of an accident there. He must have gone off. And he's now down into 18th place. The Aston Martin not had a good day at the office, that is for sure. And that's really unfortunate for him. He got caught up in that safety car and he didn't pit, and that's cost him dearly. And that's a real shame for Norby there. And at this moment in time, again, these gaps are really starting to be nice and close once again. Danny Berezhny applying all the pressure to Thomas Ronhard. It's just seeing how long can Ronhard hold up Berezhny. Is Berezhny going to go down the inside? No. Thinks better off it. Not through this sector. You'd think he's going to line it up on the exit off the final corner here. Try and get as good as run as possible and make Ronhard use as much ERS as he can, as the Red Bull have bent in front of him. He's got that 2-second gap, and here we go. Ronhard makes the move into turn 1. Easy as you like, but this is where things can get interesting. It could be 3 wide. Danny Berezhny, 2 cars at once. Easy as you like. That's him now up into P4, and Esteban Pukki as well. He says thank you, and he's now up into P6.
Yeah, curious to see Pukki on those soft tyres, straight down the inside of Ronhard. He's going to go, and so Bosch, he's into 5th place. The soft tyres, as we know from the previous stint, will be fast until about 10. Realistically, it's probably about 8 laps into the stint, but maybe 10 laps into the stint, courtesy of the safety car intervention. So for Pukki, for Berezhny, it's kind of now or never, and use it to try and clear their way a bit further down the road, but I don't know if they're going to be able to catch the 2 seconds to Jarno Opmeer, who really knows that one. Opmeer's closed the unbelievable gap between himself and Zoltan Boda in almost no time, in the blink of an eye, realistically, as he's on the hard tyre runner of the AlphaTauri team. Zoltan Boda will be feeling the pressure from Jarno Opmeer, and surely there'll be a move down into T1. Yeah,
it's interesting. A few people mentioned in the chat there about Ronhard not defending. I think it was just a matter of if, not when, really. When it was a matter of when it was going to be made, not if. That both Danny and Esteban were going to make that move, and here we go. Jarno Opmeer as well, getting down the inside of Zoltan Boda, easy as you like. And again, Ronhard, I think, is just playing the long game here, trying to look after his mediums while these soft runners do all the hard work for him. Close that gap down to Zoltan as well as Jarno, and then we can have a really exciting battle for this race win. If Jarno closes up to Ulas and then Danny also closes up to this top 3, this could be quite an entertaining end to this race now.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, obviously at all times as a driver, you're weighing up risk. And at that point, the risk versus reward, what's the reward at keeping Esteban Pukki at bay? You're going to be dealing with him for the next sort of 5 laps in very risky ways and very dangerous ways, because he obviously wants to get down the order and check out. Esteban Pukki's a little bit annoyed by the scenario. He's led so many laps this afternoon. He'll probably end up leading the most laps of this race and find himself down in 5th position on the non-ideal strategy. What's the reward from keeping him at bay for so long? It's just it's the risk. It outweighs it. So at that point, if that's the case, if he's already set it down the inside of T2, you might as well just let him go, and that's fine. Try and keep up for as long as possible, play the long game, and obviously you're trying to take these medium tyres to the end of the race, and I'm sure there's a solid result coming from Ronha. Danny Beresne and Esteban Pukki surely have got a pit stop left to do. I believe Ulas Yildirim, Jana Wotmir, Zoltan Bode, Ronha, they're all going to the end of the race from this point.
Yes, I fully agree with you on that one, and I think that's why Zoltan could actually be a little bit of an underdog here in this sense, because if he can just hold on to this gap where it's around 1.3, he can really do a good job. And there we go, Danny Beresne making that move down the inside, easy as you like for him. But like I was saying, if Zoltan can really hold on to this group here, he can be the quickest driver towards the end of this race, because the mediums will considerably drop off and the hard should be the best. But I do wonder if we will see the mediums pit again. It could be an interesting one, but will it be worth it is the question. I'm not too sure. I think Danny Beresne, like you mentioned, and Esteban Pukki will both have to pit, but they'll be considerably quicker compared to everybody else, and that is going to be the factor which is going to play on the minds, I think, of these medium drivers. Will we pit and cover off the speed that they could have, or will we have a big enough gap before they can even catch us towards the end of the race?
The other thing as well to think about in this one is that for Jana Wotmir to be victorious this afternoon, he has to close up to Ulas Yildirim and pass Ulas Yildirim, and that is not going to be easy as Zoltan Bode drops back behind Esteban Pukki. Fastest lap of the race being set in the hands of Danny Beresne, and 1.1 seconds up to the race lead. Beresne is closed right back in on his teammate. Again, the expectations are that we'll see the drivers running 3rd and 4th re-enter pit lane. Fair enough, is what it is. For Jana Wotmir, Ulas Yildirim is not going to be an easy driver to pass. He's absolutely rapid, is the Turkey. Qualified in 2nd position, fair enough. He is a fast driver. He knows what he's doing. And whilst, yes, feeling the pressure, he's won a race in this championship. He's not going to be lost in the moment. Yeah,
he's comfortable right now, I'd say. I don't think he's feeling any kind of pressure from Jana at this point in time as well. And he's an esports driver as well, remember. He knows how to deal with an even quicker driver in a sense at this point in time, being on fresh and medium tyres as well. That's going to be a really key point of this race. Even having one lap fresher can be really, really devastating unless you've really managed your tyres that well. So again, it's going to be interesting. Jano's now done a bit of a good job to close that gap. He's now got the DRS of US, and he's got to really, because he can't afford Danny Beresne to just speed past him and maybe pull out a bit of a gap. But remember in the last stint, this is where the mediums and the softs kind of started to switch around. Where the mediums were the quicker tyre. So this is going to be an interesting point now. Does Danny still have the pace to try and dispatch Jano and Ulas and try and pull away? That's going to be a key point for me, and something I'm going to keep a close eye on here.
Yeah, indeed. And like I say, people are playing long games. People are playing a lot of strategy calls at the moment. Who's on the right one at the moment? And whilst that includes who's on the right tyre right now, but it also includes the idea of how hard are you pushing right now. And like I say, when it came to tyre saving last round in Bahrain, we saw some very impressive driving to make sure the tyres reached the end of the race. This is a whole different ball game, trying to keep tyres alive around such a tricky and treacherous circuit. Gaps now under a second between all 4 drivers inside that top 4. Of course, the 2 Mercedes teammates, I'd suspect won't fight yet. But the thing is, if Jano doesn't allow Danny Beresne to pass now, then surely he's never going to, because the soft should fall off from now on, basically.
Yeah, that's totally right. And Badgerman's updating us in the chat here. Thomas does have some damage. He has some front right wing damage. So that is explaining the pace difference between Thomas and the drivers in front of him. He's just not been able to close that gap, and now it makes a lot more sense to me why he has been struggling in these past few laps. And it's costly. Any kind of damage on this game, it really does affect the confidence as well for a lot of these drivers. Although it doesn't look like he has any damage on our screen here, look at him come around the corners, he does have some minor damage, and that can cost you a few tenths per lap. But again, he's not doing a bad job. He is slowly closing up to Zoltan Boda, who's, again, he's driving brilliantly on those hard tyres.
Yeah, and that damage must have come from when we had that little bit of 3 wide on the restart coming on the exit of T2. It must have come there. Again, this is definitely a question from idiot person who doesn't know anything about F1, as in the game. I know a few things about real F1, don't worry. With that damage on the front wing, is that going to wear his tyres out more?
In a way, it can, yes, because he's going to have to turn the car obviously a lot harder, a lot more aggressively. And I do wonder as well how the wear is just going to add up, because he's significantly losing speed into the corners as well. He's going to have to brake maybe slightly earlier. It just depends on the side, and obviously, the wear is going to be a crucial part because he's just turning more aggressively as well. So yeah, I think it does add up ever so slightly. Yeah, it's quite going to be an interesting point to keep in mind because, again, Thomas is doing an okay job right now, considering he does have damage.
Gonzalez into the pit lane. So Gabor Cechik has already been in. Ronha picks up his second time penalty of the race. So he's now up to 6 seconds of time penalties to deal with for track limit excursions. Obviously, a lot of that will be struggling when you're understeering. The ability to run wide at T4 is going to be way easy to do so. I'm sure he's just picked up a few of those. This will be a very frustrating race for Ronha, but alas, it is what it is. Danny Berejne, now the focus of our attention, is right on the rear end of Jarno Opmeer. Realistically, I think for him, getting to the end of the race is not likely. As we said before, maybe it's possible, but it's not likely, that's for sure. I think at the moment, he's just making sure that he's keeping Pookie at bay to stop Pookie from going on the attack of Opmeer, because Pookie will absolutely try and get past Opmeer if he possibly can.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well as that, Jarno's also protecting Danny in a sense, because Danny, I think his soft tyres are starting to fall away a little bit now, and the pace is still there, but I think Jarno in a sense is also enabling him to save some of the tyres a little bit longer as well. That's why you're not really seeing Danny push Jarno any further than he is at this point in time. But Ulnes as well, he's doing a good job at this moment in time, keeping the pace at a considerable rate, not really making any mistakes either really. But in these last few laps, we have seen that gap slowly close down between himself and Jarno, and you've got to wonder now, will Jarno go for that move? It's something that I'm gonna say it wouldn't be too long away, but at the same time, I think he wants to protect Danny from Istvan Pookie as well. But again, the soft runners are definitely starting to feel the pain now of their tyres starting to fade away, and they're fading away quite quickly as the gap between the mediums is starting to extend and open up a little bit more as each lap progresses.
Yeah, absolutely. This is fascinating. We've got 20 laps left to go. 20 more times they'll go around the circuit. And here comes the move for the race lead. Jarno Opmeer has got down the inside of Ulas Yildirim, and into the race lead the Mercedes goes. That was not fought really at all by Ulas Yildirim, which was an interesting strategy call from his part. Not 100% sure as to why he wouldn't at least defend that down into T1. But either way, Jarno Opmeer up to the front of the field. And now for him, it'll be about checking out into the distance and praying for no safety car. Although, the chance of safety car between now and the end of the race still going to be fairly high.
Yeah, you just can't put it past there to be a safety car. As much as we write it off during this race so far, there's always been another one that pops up not too long later. So now we've mentioned it, there could be that possibility of another one not too far on the horizon, which again would massively benefit the likes of Ronha, who's got wing damage, as well as Ben Tomakanyi. All the drivers behind him really who are probably looking to pit again and really have that gap closed up, because if there was a late safety car around this circuit as well, in terms of the desperation we could see from a lot of these drivers trying to make moves and gain positions and get on that podium place, it could be a quite thrilling end to this race if there was yet another safety car.
I'd be up for another safety car. I think the only person who would absolutely be like, no, definitely not, when it comes to another safety car is Jan Opmeer. I think everyone else would be like, yeah, do you know what? I fancy it. Yeah, go on, chuck one out there. So if someone could bin it really hard, that'd be great. But I'm not sending any money on PayPal. But I'm pretty sure, some drivers will be like, yeah, no, I'll PayPal you £5. £5, drop it. £5. He knows though. Fast lap being sent by Ben Silas, who obviously was in the pit lane fairly recently, which isn't too much of a shock.
Yeah, and again, it's just really who is going to pit first as well out of all these runners. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see Ronha be one of the first drivers to pit, go for that undercut, fix the front wing, and then just go on the attack. Danny Berezny, by the way, he is flashing. So Berezny is struggling for pace now. The soft runners are definitely slower. That is for sure. But also, Unas is also struggling, if I'm not mistaken. If I go on board here, yes, he is. He's flashing. So Unas is also struggling as well. But also, they're all flashing. The top three are all flashing here. That is a surprise, to say the least. I thought there would have been a little bit better ERS management between the top three here. And here we go. We get to see the soft tyres. 30% for the soft runners at their peak here. So that's their worst tyre life. And that's a surprise to me. I thought it would have been a little bit higher on lap 50, with 15 laps on these soft tyres.
Same. Now, what's the percentage that it gets to when you can get a puncture?
I think
it's like 60.
Yeah, around 60-70%, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite high.
Like 65. So realistically, then Berezny and Pookie can get to the end of the race if they drive really rather carefully. They can absolutely get to the end of the race.
But you would think though that they wouldn't, because the considerable pace drop off that they're gonna see here would surely not benefit them at all. And I was just wondering, they've got to pit. I would say pit in the next couple of laps and then be really aggressive towards the end, because the medium runners, they're gonna probably comfortably make it in a way. But if you can apply some kind of pressure and put some really good lap times in, maybe it's worth a little bit of a risk here.
I mean, look, a championship like this, I would absolutely be like, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to go on to a fresh set of softs and I'm going to try and push this car to the absolute limit and see what I get out of it. Because,
Istvan Pukki, sorry to interrupt.
Pukki did. No, absolutely. He is doing exactly what we're talking about. Interesting. And Ronha. So Ronha's obviously going to do his front wing. He's going to do the front wing repair as well.
Oh, he's retired.
Oh, he's bailed. Never mind.
That is a shame, because I would have been interested to see what Ronha would have been able to do. Obviously, he doesn't want to pit and do the front wing damage and also come back out. But that's a shame to see, because it would have been interesting to see what Ronha would have been able to do after he got that front wing change, been on fresh soft and really attacked everyone. But that's the thing of this league as well, with that 100% distance. You just don't know if there's going to be another safety car. So I'm surprised to see Thomas kind of bail on that.
Yeah, obviously he's gone to a fresh. It has gone to a fresh set of softs, but does that mean is he definitely out?
Yes,
because he did this.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, okay, it's fine. The only thing that I'm shocked by there is, like, if you're going to retire, if I were in his boots, I would have retired earlier. I'd have been like, as soon as I got that front wing damage and I'm like struggling, I'd be like, is there a safety car? No, there's no safety car in front. Yep, cool, bye.
Yeah.
Realistically, I can't blame them, because these races are so long. And, obviously, it's your own time. It's your own evening. It's a Thursday night. The darts have all finished, but still, I'm sure there's something else to watch. I think there's a Premier League match sometime. Maybe he's a massive Everton fan. I think Everton's right.
Too sure about that, but you never know. He could be a secret fan of some sport which is on tonight, which we just don't know, and he has to get onto it.
The FA Cup. There you go.
Hey, so
maybe he's a massive Crystal Palace fan.
Nothing wrong with that.
Probably not.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this race really now does unfold after all this all comes about. Because again, you question now, Istvan's been the first one in that top four to go into the pits and put on fresh set of softs, and he is putting some good lap times here in as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, does Berezny react in these next few laps, or does Jarno or Jonas? Because I don't think they will bother reacting to Istvan here. I think Danny will, but he's going to be considerably undercutted here, but he'll have the better grip and the better pace, you would think, towards in the race, and he should come back and attack Istvan pretty easily.
Yeah, and just remember, for Istvan Pukki, for this strategy to be a success, he doesn't necessarily have to win the race, right? As Jarno Opmeer, by the way, has been closed in on by Ulas Zildrim. So the top three are now very close. Don't know what's happened there. We'll get to that in a second. But for Istvan Pukki, if he gets up into fourth, which is where he was when he came into the pit lane, then in a sense, the strategy is a success, right? Because then at least he's still finishing in the fourth position. And anything above that is a bonus. But getting back into fourth position, that's the priority. Because even if you don't win, as long as you return to the position that you started the strategy swing, then you're in the right position. Obviously, he set the fastest lap of the race as well, which is absolutely no shock.
Yeah, 100%. And he's just set the fastest lap of the race there as well. He's got an 18.5 second gap to the leader of Jarno. So that's going to be an interesting factor to keep an eye on here, is how quickly does he close this gap every lap? Because if he gains around 2 seconds or a second and a half per lap, then I think, Jarno's going to be under a bit of pressure then. If you think about it, with how many laps we've got left, and he keeps up this pace, it's going to be interesting, but it's just how long can he push and keep the tyres in check? Because now it's around 17.6. By the end of this lap, it could be in the 16s, but he's going to be held up here by Napoleon, also known as Kanakinchi. So again, it's interesting to say how much time he can gain from this strategy, but if you've seen the lap times he's put in here, you wouldn't put it past him to really close up. And there we go, down the inside as well. It's Kanakinchi, Istvan Pukki, now up into P7.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive, and just showed the pace advantage as Danny Berejne has got past Jarno Opmeer, because Opmeer is in the pit lane, as is bench Jabo Konyi. They are not playing the long game here, and maybe this race is swinging towards Zoltan Boda. Into the pit lane comes our one of our race leaders in the recent past. I was wondering why he was starting to struggle on speed. Was Jarno Opmeer? He was getting caught back by Ulas Zildrim. And then bang, straight into the pit lane. So we've got two drivers that are very close for the race lead. Danny Berejne is going to try and maybe get past Ulas Zildrim, but I wouldn't be shocked if those two come into the pit lane, unless maybe they are just throwing it all to the wall and saying, hey, do you know what? We are going to the end of the race. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and that'll be one really interesting end to this race. But Istvan is now in the net race lead if these guys do pit again. So that's quite an interesting factor as well. But I don't see them pitting. Personally, Danny Berejne definitely, I think, will pit because I don't see his softs maybe lasting towards the end of this race unless he's really nursing them quite well. But you've got to think, if Istvan does catch up, it should be relatively easy for him to make the moves. And here we go, we're seeing another move on Takas here, down the inside, easy as you like. He's now up into P4, so back where he started. And like you mentioned earlier, it's now really nice, and he's now, Danny Berejne, like you mentioned, gone into the pits. So he's had to react because he's seen the pace of Istvan Pukki here.
Yeah, and maybe Ulas Zildrim is going to the end of the race. Who knows? I think if you're in Istvan Pukki's boots right now, if I were him, as we'll see Jarno Opmeer work his way past Kanakinchi down into the first corner. You can see Danny Berejne there out of the pit lane in the background. If I'm in Istvan Pukki's boots, I am mentally preparing myself for Zoltan Boda, who's almost certainly not coming into the pit lane, and for Ulas Zildrim to stay out. I'm preparing that they are going to remain out on the racetrack and that I must close down the 13-odd seconds up to the race lead. That's my goal. I must be a second a lap faster than Ulas Zildrim every single lap until the end of the race to go and get this victory. That's what I'd be mentally preparing myself. If you go into this race and you're sat there being like, oh, well, they're definitely going to stop. Yeah, but they're definitely going to stop. They're definitely going to stop. With 5 laps left to go and they're still not stopping. You're like, they're not stopping. It's like, no, prepare yourself now and go on the attack now whilst you have the grip on the tyres.
Yeah, it's perfectly said, because you can't afford to take that risk, that gamble that Ulas does. Just will pit, because it's going to cost you towards the end of the race. And Danny Berejne as well, making light work of Kanakinchi. But I was quite interested to see what Kanakinchi was doing against Jarno Opmeer there. He was properly giving him a little squeeze, making it as hard as possible, and he has the right to do so. Obviously trying to hold on to as many points as he possibly can. In P7 at the moment, he's not had too bad of a race here. And here we're going to see Jarno Opmeer again make another move down the straight, easy as you like, into turn 1. Again, Takas doesn't really put up much of a fight, but there we go. Up into P4 goes Jarno Opmeer. Nicely done there from the Dutchman, and now he's got a bit of work to do. On the medium tyres as well is an interesting strategy call, because you thought he would have gone for fresh softs.
But I think he is preparing for Istvan Pukki's soft to go off the cliff. I think that's what he is preparing himself for in this scenario. We know the softs will drop off quite a bit, and it's normally around that lap 10 mark. Esteban Pukki's already done 3 more laps than Jarno Opmeer on his tyres. That's what Jarno Opmeer is preparing for. So if you're thinking maybe that 4-second gap is maybe too large for Jarno Opmeer to close down on, do remember back to earlier on in the race when we had the top 3 on the soft, being Pukki, Jarno Opmeer and Ronha, and how quickly Danny Berejne on the medium tyres closed down on them.
Yes.
It was very impressive indeed, and that's the kind of thing that I think we can see with 3-4 laps left to go.
Yeah, it's a brilliant point to make, and Danny Berejne made another move on the Williams. Again, he's just dropping backwards really, but on those medium tyres, 22 laps, you really kind of got to expect that against a fresh, soft runner. Trying to make that move around the outside, and Esteban Pukki now moves up into P2. Easy as you like. Zoltan Boda is having a really good race here, by the way. He's managed to hold on to these tyres quite nicely, and he's done a good strategy. We thought he could have been leading possibly this race due to this strategy call, but unfortunately just hasn't really worked out. The fresh softs have really come back to be quite killerous in that sense, and really just killed him, unfortunately. And I think Jarno Opmeer, it's only a matter of when before he gets that move done on Zoltan, who again is having a great drive here.
Yeah, exactly. Boda's doing a very impressive job. Just to have held on for as long as he can to try something differently on the strategy. It's not going to work out, and to be perfectly honest, I can see him dropping quite a bit down the order. Yes, sure, Opmeer is going to fly past, Berejne is going to fly past. Outside of that, I'm less sure. But certainly those two will fly their way past. I've got absolutely no doubt. But the important bit, really, the bit that we really need to be focused on is Esteban Pukki is 7 seconds off the race lead with less than 10 laps. So, well, 10 laps left to go once they complete this one. Jarno Opmeer, importantly, is around about 3 to 3.2 seconds off the back of Esteban Pukki and will surely get past Zoltan Boda down into T1. Certainly with that drive off the corner. That is how the grip difference is. These mediums versus the 24-lap-old hard tyres of Zoltan Boda. Fastest lap being set there from Danny Berejne as he'll be closing back in. We're going to have quite a fight for the podium, and I'm not sure which of the 4, Ulas Yildirim, Esteban Pukki, Jarno Opmeer or Danny Berejne, I've got no idea which of those 4 drivers are going to be on the podium and in what position they're going to be in when they get there.
Yes, it's a great point to make, and I really don't know how it's all going to go down. And Bence has made a nice move. Zobakanyi down the inside of Bence Illis up into P7, so he's having a good drive now. He's going to score some big points here for Haas, and Danny Berejne now makes a brilliant move down just before the corner of the chicane up into P4. He's applying the pressure to Jarno Opmeer now, gap 1.3 seconds. Oh, apologies for that. But yeah, Jarno Opmeer is really going to be under pressure in these next few laps, and I do wonder, will Jarno defend as aggressively, because you do wonder, they want to catch up to Esteban here, and they're going to then want to overtake Esteban and try and catch up to Yildiz. But Yildiz is doing a good job. He's not losing too much time to Esteban, but the gap is slowly but surely coming down.
If I were running strategy, genuinely, like, if I were the one running strategy for Mercedes right now, I'd be like, don't fight. Danny, look after your tyres. Don't fight right now. Once you've both got past Esteban Pukki and Ulas Yildirim and you're in the race lead, then you can fight. But if you fight now before you've got past, you may not get the opportunity to make that pass. So it's that whole playing the long game, which is obviously incredibly hard to play when you've got just 8 laps left to go of a full distance Hungarian Grand Prix. But right now, that would be kind of where I'd be leaning to. But then obviously you don't, like, Danny Berejne's tyres are fastest now. They might not be at the end of the race. It's kind of like, it's not an easy one, but that would be the call I'd make. I'd be like, don't fight now, wait until you're through. If you're running 1 and 2, go for it.
Definitely so, and I think that's a great point to make. And I do wonder, will they listen to you, or will they go their opposite way and do what they want? And I think Danny, he's got, looking on his wheel right now, he doesn't have all too much ERS to play around with here. I'd say roughly around 20% odd. I think it's around 25 if I can see just about on his wheel there. So he can't really be fighting too hard because Jarno has got over half on his wheel. So again, that's a huge point to keep in mind. But will they swap around? Again, Danny Berejne not using any of the battery. He's just using, and he's lifting off as well on the straight. So that's an interesting point. So they're going to be listening to, they've obviously listened to your advice. They're going to work together and then get past Esteban and probably then go and start fighting each other.
what can I say? I've run strategy on teams and stuff before. I'm obviously just big brain. That's not true. It's a wild guessing game, and I say these two, they're solid teammates. They know what they're doing. Then they're playing their cards as well as they can, both trying to look for victory. I mean, if it gets to 4 laps left to go, and they haven't caught up to Pookie and Ulas Zildrim, which by the way, they are going to catch up to Istvan Pookie and Ulas Zildrim. But let's say, for example, they don't, then they fight, because fair enough, like, if you're not going to pass, if you're not going to catch, you might as well go for it. But right now, they're playing for the race victory. And isn't it just so good that we're 63 laps into this race? Yes, of course, sure, we've had a few safety car interventions, but, not for a while. Let's be honest, that we're closing down to the final portions of this race. We've got 4 drivers in this for victory. All 4 of them are separated by around about 4 seconds, basically, and it is getting closer and closer and closer. You've got Istvan Pookie going faster than Ulas Zildrim. You've got Jarno Opmeer going faster than the pair of them, and you've got Danny Brezhnev with an even faster car than the 3 cars ahead of him.
Yeah, it is really interesting to say the least, and I think Danny Brezhnev was looking for a move down the inside. He was closing and closing and closing on Opmeer, but Opmeer just had ran out. Well, for his sake, he ran out enough straight to make sure that Brezhnev could not make that move down the inside a little bit longer, and I think Brezhnev might have fancied his chances, but again, he is applying that pressure more and more now, and he's making Opmeer work for it, and he's working harder. But again, I think they are playing that team game, like you mentioned, working together, and then once that win is on, they'll battle it out. But again, I think Danny Brezhnev's got to go for it pretty early, because his softs are going to be worse than the mediums, remember, as this race progresses, and how hard they're both pushing now. I don't see Brezhnev really holding on to a win if he does get past Opmeer, because again, the favour of tyres will be in Opmeer's hand, and that's going to be a key element and a part of this race. But I think we're going to see a switcher lead very, very soon here.
Surely down into T1, Istvan Pookie is going to work his way past Ulas Zildrim, who, just a reminder and a shout out, has been absolutely fantastic. Has been down the order so many times this race, pitted really early, had a few issues, still timed his way as well as he could up into the race lead with the strategy, but with tyres that are 27, now 28 laps old, it is going to be too hard for him to try and hang on to the race. He's going to take an inside line down into the first corner. Istvan Pookie is going to get to the outside. He sends it in. There's contact between the pair of them, but the Ferrari's going to hold firm, trying to get around the outside as Jarno Opmeer sweeps past the pair of them, and the Mercedes driver flies into the race lead here in Hungary as Istvan Pookie has to now settle once again for second place.
That was so interesting to see. It was like the camera you could not see, and Danny Brezhnev makes a move down the inside of Ulas Zildrim. Brilliantly done. But I was just about to say, the camera, you were just waiting for them to come around the corner, and then you just see a Mercedes come down the inside and said thank you very much, and he's taking the race lead. Jarno Opmeer be over the moon with that one, because those two just got their elbows out a little bit too much. Ulas had every right to defend that, but I think he just went over that limit a little bit too much, and it cost them both dearly.
See, I think it was more Istvan Pookie sent it in maybe a little bit too hard into T1. The pair of them made contact, and Jarno Opmeer read it from 1,000 miles away and just went for the up and under and bash into the race lead. He goes. Now he's cleared 1.2 seconds. Danny Brezhnev will try and clear Istvan Pookie as quick as possible. And then there might be that Mercedes on Mercedes battle that we were talking about. If Brezhnev can get through, if he can clear away from Istvan Pookie and there's no chance of anyone else getting involved in this fight, then maybe we'll see a battle between the Mercs. It becomes a Mercedes 1-2 once again this season. We saw it in Interlagos, and we are seeing it once again here in Hungary. 1.1 seconds between Jarno Opmeer and Danny Brezhnev. They have played their way through this race absolutely brilliantly, and let's be honest, not everything's fallen into their favour. They've had to work for this.
Yeah, definitely so, and I am just wondering now to see what's going to happen between the pair of them, because Danny Brezhnev is going to really attack Jarno now, and it's going to be a battle of who has the most ERS here as well, not just the best tyres, because again, if Jarno is saved enough, he can defend this. It's possible, because the mediums are only going to get better now, and the softs are only going to get worse. You're seeing the effects on Istvan Pookie now. 4 laps older than Danny Brezhnev, and look at the gap he has pulled Brezhnev on Istvan. It's around 1.3 already. So that just shows me the wear and tear of these soft tyres are really starting to degrade very, very quickly now. And you just wonder how long has Danny Brezhnev got left before his tyres really become worse than the mediums.
Yeah, which is going to be fascinating. Well, the gap's now 1.5 seconds, so realistically speaking, there's no excuse for these two not to battle. And so we'll have to wait and see on that one. Obviously, we've got 4 laps left to go here in Hungary, and what was building up to quite the crescendo might end in a fair anti-climax. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe the two Mercs will put on quite a show. The likes of Istvan Pukki, Frulas Azildarim, their chances of taking a victory here have almost certainly gone, unless these two crash into each other, which, let's be honest, we've seen weirder things. For Benchstarvo Konyi, who's had so many podiums this season, he's inside the top 5 once again. And yes, Mercedes have a 1-2 here, and they'll be pulling away in the Teams Championship. But let's give a big shout out to Haas, who have once again been up and down the order like it is going out of fashion, and they find themselves both inside the top 5. That's how consistent they've been.
Yeah, it's a really good performance. I've been impressed by both drivers here tonight, and they've just been consistently just there or thereabouts. Jonas had that little, downside at the start of the race where he had to pit for fresh front wing. Got fortunate with the safety car, and now he's back in the race, and now he's up into P4. And I don't know if he'll hang on to that, because Bence is coming at really quick pace here, and I do wonder if the mediums will even make it now, because he's going to have to nurse these tyres quite considerably, because they are starting to really drop off quickly now. So again, it's an interesting point to keep in mind. But I was looking on board with Jarno and Danny's wheel there, and Bresnay had around half of what Jarno does. I think he had around 25%, whereas, Otmir had around 50 to 60. So again, it's all in favour of Jarno Otmir at this moment in time. The soft tyres really are just hanging on, and Bresnay's doing a great job, might I add. Closed that gap down to 3 attempts. You wonder now, when will he go on the attack?
Do you think he will go on the attack, or do you think he's going to hold position in second?
I think he'll go for it at some point. There's no way. The victory's right there. The teammates at the end of the day, they're going to keep it respectful. But they're going to fight it out, surely. This is a home circuit for Danny Bresnay. He'll want to win it at his home track, at his home Grand Prix. I'm sure he'll go for it. There's no way as a driver you will sit behind at your home GP and go, I'll settle for second place. You want that first place. And I know Danny Bresnay will definitely go for it. But again, it's a matter of how long his tyres can go for. But I think Jarno is sort of toying with him a little bit now, because, it's opened up by 5 attempts at the gap. So again, as long as they're around 5 to 6, 7 attempts, I think Jarno Otmir is safe from any attack, and because he's got the ERS as well. So again, Bresnay will try, but I don't think as much as he will try, I don't think he'll get close, unfortunately.
On to the penultimate lap of the race then. DRS wide open for Danny Bresnay, who will close in going into T1, probably on the brakes fairly early. I agree. I think if this was, the highest level and then up for $750,000 for the championship, all that kind of stuff, then I'd say these two ain't going to fight, because there's no point in even risking it and blah, 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 blah. We ain't in that scenario. And I would be disappointed if Danny Bresnay didn't, at the bare minimum, try. And I'm not saying go for some ridiculous move down the inside and risk taking out your teammate, but at least a look, at least show the intent. But I think even if there is intent shown, I just think that Jarno Otmir is going to be too hard to actually pass in this scenario. He's on the medium tyres, which will be better from now until the end of the race. Like you say, he's got the ERS in hand as well. This will be an uphill battle for Danny Bresnay at the best of times, as the fastest lap was set by Chanakinchi over the previous lap.
Definitely, and Chanakinchi, again, unfortunately, it's not been his day at the office, has it really? Been caught up in a few incidents, had to pit, front wing change, and here we go, come around the final corner to start the final lap of this Hungarian Grand Prix, and what a race it has been. Again, Danny Bresnay is going to use all his overtake here, and Jarno Otmir just knows he doesn't really have to worry about anything, as again, Bresnay's just that little bit too far back. But what a race it's been from this Mercedes team. They've been calculated from start to finish, and they've just put on a really dominant performance. Yeah,
absolutely. It's been very impressive, isn't it? Like I said, they've not had everything go their way. They've had the issues with the safety car coming out at an awkward time, and yet still they've strategized their way into this position. And can we just say, some of the best team play that we've ever seen, with that whole T1 down to T2 scenario where they were switching but then allowing themselves to go. That was crazy.
Definitely so, and just saw the tyre difference there between Istvan and Danny there, and that was quite an interesting thing to bring up, because you could just see the difference. And Danny had still quite a bit of tyre life, but I just know for a fact that Jarno's is considerably less, and he's just at this moment in cruise control. I think if Jarno really wanted to open the gap, he could have, but why not just come across the line and want to, and have that bright smile on your face, knowing that you've done an unbelievable job at the Hungary ring.
Yeah, round 5 of the Ironman League comes to a close. Out through the final corner, it is for the second time this season. A Mercedes 1-2, and for the third time in the championship, Jarno Opmeer takes victory. Danny Berejne behind with Istvan Pukki rounding out the podium. It's been a fantastic performance from the three of them this afternoon, but again, it is Jarno Opmeer on top. Ulas Yildirim will bring home his teammate in Benjabo Konyi across the line, both inside the top 5. Shout out to Zoltan Boda doing the final portion of that stint on the media on the hard tyres. Of course, Ulas Yildirim did the final stint on that on the mediums, doing 34 laps, nearly half the race distance on the single set of tyres around such a difficult circuit. 2 Red Bulls get themselves inside the top 10 as well. Of course, we'll see Shenegaratsky dropping down the order courtesy of the track limit excursions penalties, and I think maybe there's a speeding in the pit lane in there as well. But again, what an exciting race! Again, ended on a bit of an anticlimax, fair enough, but it was a great race.
Yeah, definitely so, and finally getting a few drivers come around the final corner and a few retirement and a quit there for Ebzina. But yeah, that was actually really, for my first ever time seeing this 100% race, it's actually been very entertaining. I couldn't imagine being the driver behind the wheel, how exhausted you must be after it, because it must be draining, going through each corner and keeping the concentration as well. But my, that was such an entertaining race with the change of weather, the overtakes you got to see as well. They were absolutely breathtaking, and the Ironman League definitely brings a different kind of racing, which you don't get to see in the 50% and whatever other ones there are. But that was a really good race here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think normally when we all do our own races, like when it's single player or whatever, or the online stuff, you're generally doing 25 or 50% races. Not too many do 100% races. And normally, if you're playing it in single player, you can pause it, you can go to the loo, you can do all that kind of stuff. It is tough to do it all in one sitting. Although, let's be honest, I come from the world of endurance racing where you do 3 hours behind the wheel and no problem. Well, I think the longest I've ever seen anyone do was 10 hours and 40 minutes behind the wheel, which I was disgusted by the way, considering they were doing it really quickly. Either way, a look at the, of course, provisional results. Jarno Opmeer, Danny Berejne first and second. Istvan Pukki in that third position. Ulas Yildirim, Benjabo Konyi, Zoltan Boda, Ben Silas. Timbo inside the top 10. Nice for McLaren. Gabor Takash and Shenegaratsky rounding out the top 10 before we get those drivers outside of the top 10. Shubi Fensel, Tamas Alroots, of course, Gabor Vaida, Gabor Chechik, and then we get Napoleon. He is back from the dead, but of course not scoring any points, but did take the fast lap of the race, at least as that. Norbert Jabo Konyi, Norbert Eisner, Thomas Ronhard, Danny Benzer, and David Vincer all being retirements from this race. So, what do I say? I think it was an exciting race. It's a bit of a shame to see it end in a little bit of disappointment with the race, but again, I think we had our absolute fair share in all of that, and it was thrilling.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It was definitely a brilliant race to watch, and it's been a pleasure to commentate alongside you for this one, and hopefully we get some people to join us and get a little interview. It'd be great to hear from them. But yeah, that was such an exciting race. And again, Ronha, I think he'll walk away a little bit disappointed from that one, picking up that front wing damage. I think that really did cost him, and seeing him retire, I think if you look back on that now, seeing what happened to Istvan, and he wouldn't have been maybe that far back, he really could have been challenging for the podium towards the end of that race.
Yeah, but again, it's that's sometimes some of the difficulties, some of the frustrations. It is what it is. And again, this kind of championship, if it's kind of one of those ones that a lot of these drivers are doing it for fun, and if it's not fun, and I always said this before, I used to be, when I was a lot younger and a lot newer in the world of sim racing, I used to be a bit like, no, you should never quit and work, because if it's not fun and you're not being paid for it, you've got no commitment. You can leave if you wish. It's fine. I will say, by the way, when it comes to interviews, we've only ever had one interview this season of all of the rounds we've done. It was Benjabo Konyi, and it was last round. I was so shocked to see someone in the interview room. Hopefully, we'll get someone, but again, who knows?
We'll give it another
Yeah,
minute or so to see if anybody is really interested. I'm sure Istvan Pukki would want to have a little interview to hear what he had to say, because again, he had one of the most up and down races I've ever seen. But what a drive, and what composure as well, to really come back and deliver how he did. And he nearly got the win in the end. It wasn't too far away, but those soft tyres just fell off a little bit too much towards the end there.
Yeah, exactly. I liked seeing the fact that I like seeing that we saw a long green flag run at the end of the race, right? Because we saw the different strategies kind of come into it. We saw people trying different things, whether it was going on the hards, it was going on the mediums, or going on the softs. Or some people were doing that pit stop in the middle, going out on the medium, some going out on the softs. Like I thought that's fascinating. That's where for me the full distance race really comes into its own. Quite a lot of the races that we've had so far this season, while they've been exciting because they've been long, they've mostly been exciting because there's been a lot of safety cars and everyone's restarting really, really close to each other. I do like seeing the race unfolding and seeing where things are going to go strategically, and we saw so much of it. And that's where you don't necessarily have to be like the fastest driver on planet Earth, but if you look after the tires in the right way, if you're playing the right strategy game, and that's where you can move your way up inside the top 10, top 5. Shout out to Zoltan Boda. It's a very impressive effort to have given that a go on the hard tires.
Definitely, and you'll be shocked to see we actually do have someone waiting for an interview, and it's the race winner. Jarno Uppbeat is in the waiting room. I'll try and drag him into here and see if he does join.
Who
There
has
we
the
go.
power?
He is into the stream, and hopefully he undeafens. Jarno, can you hear us?
Yes.
Well, congratulations on that victory. First, I'd just like to start us off with that opening stint. That was such a vital part of the race, and you were in the points before the end of lap 1, I believe. Just take us through that opening stage of that race.
It was full wet conditions, of course, and I instantly felt really comfortable. Had a really good opening sector. Got myself up to P11 in the opening sector, and then picked up another few cars later on in the lap. So it being Hungary, it's very difficult to overtake. But of course, in the wet, it makes it a little bit easier, I reckon. So especially in the opening lap where everyone is kind of feeling where the grip is. So that was a good. I think mainly the opening lap was not even the opening stint because it was a safety car so early on. So
Definitely, and it was quite an interesting part of the race where you were on the mediums, I believe, and Danny Bresnay was on the softs. Lewis pointed out brilliantly. Was it maybe like a switch around in that point in the race where you were on the mediums and Danny was on the faster soft compounded tyres, because we saw him gap you a little bit. You were managing to keep with him. But was that a strategy switch around there from you two? Because the teamwork from you two in particular tonight was absolutely incredible. Was that part of your plan there tonight?
I think in the opening stint I went on the opening stint of the slicks. I went into the hards because I want to get rid of them, and usually there's a lot of safety cars, so I didn't want to use up any of my good tires. Soft mediums were the better race tires, so went onto the hards, knew I was going to lose positions, but then in the second stint I went onto softs, mainly because I want to keep the mediums for later on in the race, which is when my teammate Danny went onto mediums, and then of course later on in the stint he got faster and faster, so we decided to swap around, and that was the better decision because then once we got past Isfan we could easily catch back up to Thomas, so that was just the better way to do it for both of us. And then in the last stint, I got Danny to catch back up. I was on the better race tire in the last stint on the mediums. Of course, Danny was a little bit faster when his tires were new, but he knew as well his tires were going to drop in the final few laps. So it made sense to kind of stick with each other in that last stint and get past everyone easily. So.
Yeah, so one final question from me before I give Lewis a question for you. Was it Istvan Pukki? Did he play a factor in you pitting again towards the end of that race for those mediums? Because he pitted very late on for the soft compound tyres. Were you thinking at that point in the race to stay out and really make those mediums last towards the end? Or was that always part of the plan to really pit late on and go for fresh mediums and be in that kind of comfortable position, but knowing that you've still got to put in some good lap time to catch up to Ulnas towards the end there?
No, it was definitely in our plan to box again because it's such a mechanical grip track. If you're on worn tires, you just tend to lose a lot more lap time. So both me and Danny want to box for sure again. Danny didn't have new mediums. I did. That's why I went on to mediums. Our only kind of concern was a late safety car. But of course, I think we boxed with 14 and 13 laps to go. At some point, you do have to box, otherwise you won't catch back up again. So that's why we waited quite long with boxing. We didn't really have a threat from anyone around us. Of course, Istvan boxed quite early, but he was already quite far behind and dropped out of DRS. So. We both had our plans to box again and catch back up to the field.
And I mean, I'll ask because we've not been able to chat with you this season as of yet, and obviously you've 100% distant races. What have your thoughts been on this over the 5 rounds and such that we've done? Do you like the 100% races? Are they kind of fun for you? Is it interesting to see the strategy develop each round?
Yeah, it's much more dynamic than the usual kind of esports races because there's so many safety cars, weather changes. Even if you have a great opening stint and you're leading by 10 seconds, you kind of have to stay on it nonstop, which is, first of all, a lot of fun to watch, I reckon. It's not always, of course, 1.5 hours of non-stop battling. I think we had a Mexico race earlier this season, which had no safety cars and kind of 1.5 hours of not much. But usually it's non-stop action because of the safety cars, different strategies, the weather changes. It kind of just keeps going and going. So it's much more fun to watch, I reckon. And also you have to stay on it when you're driving. No mistakes allowed. So makes it hard as a driver to 1.5 hours long stay on it.
Cheers, Jarno.
Thank you very much, Honor, for your time. Really do appreciate it, and congratulations on the victory.
Yeah, thank you guys. See you.
See you later. Yeah, so that was Hungary wrapped up, and that was a really fascinating race, and great to hear from Jarno. Thank you once again for joining. Any last words here, Lewis?
No, I think again we've had an exciting one. We've got an exciting end to the season as well. Again, a reminder of the circuits that we can still have because there should be 3 rounds left to go. We've got Singapore, we've got Belgium, we've got France, we've got Vegas left to go. Though those are the ones that it can be. Of course, we only have 3 rounds left to go, so one of those won't be raced at. I mean, I think we're in for some thrilling races. I think I'd quite like to see Belgium out next. Maybe a bit of Singapore. I wouldn't mind seeing a bit of Singapore racing.
Definitely so. But before I end this stream, we can quickly interview Danny Berezny. We've got
Ooh.
2 interviews here, which is an absolute honour. And I'll let you have the 3 questions this time around, and I'll let you go for it. So I'll drag him in here, and hopefully Danny can hear us and unmute his mic. And Danny, how are you?
Hello guys, I'm doing just great. Mercedes won 2. It was the second competitive race of the season after PSGL yesterday, and both of the races, me and Jarno double podium. And I love the saying that start something how you mean to go on. We definitely kicked off 2024 in a good fashion, and I'm just extremely happy about that. We had a little bit of break with our friends and family during the Christmas. Now back on the F1 grind, and yeah, I don't think it could be any better. We didn't even qualify, came from the very back of the field, had insanely fun battles, great overtakes, 3-4 rived moments sometimes, but we survived. We focused for 1.5 hours and a little bit more on the very challenging high downforce track of the Hungaroring, and people think it's just a game, but don't forget we are not playing with a controller or a keyboard and a mouse. Jarno's force feedback is around 18 Newton meter.
Oof.
Mine one is around 15 Newton meter, maybe 14. I think I lose around a liter of water in every race like this. So I'm not saying it's as hard as real life, because of course there is no danger, less adrenaline, no G-forces, no heat in the cabin. But it's definitely not as easy physically as playing a FIFA match or maybe even a Counter-Strike game. So I'm just very happy that we didn't make any mistakes. Track limits were really, really hard. You have 2 chances. The third one is already a 3-second penalty. We see how early Thomas got his 3-second penalty. And in this league, they are never removed. So Jarno did amazing. Well done to him on the victory. And I'm just very happy to compete to this race because he was ahead most of the time.
And Danny, let's talk about, because obviously, again, like you said there, you had a great day yesterday in PSGL. Very impressive drive. Great victory. Here, second place. It feels like for me as a spectator point of view that there's been something which has kind of changed towards the end of last year that you've carried through into this year as well, because you're looking absolutely rapid right now. Is there anything that's different, or is it just things are clicking in the races?
I'm trying to improve myself as a person holistically. I try to eat healthy, train good, sleep good. and put in the work that's needed. A productive work, not emotionally based work. I don't do what I feel like doing. I do what I know I have to be doing, and just try to improve on myself every single day. And if I end up being 1,000 or 100 quicker every single day throughout the whole year, that's impossible. Massive gains. So consistency is the key. And I really like what I'm doing, and I'm really happy we got these opportunities to race, even when the F1 Esports is not so certain and not quite on at the moment. WR, PSGL, and all the other leagues are amazing, especially in the off season of real F1 as well. If you look it from a really far distance, most of these races can look like real life, to be honest, to some casual viewers. So I just really hope that many people give it a go to try the game or just to watch some of these races, as I think it's truly entertaining, especially when there is no real F1.
Yeah, and you've alluded to the how hard it is, how as close to reality as it is that you can get, and so in that, of course, in Hungarian racing at the Hungarian Grand Prix in game, doing a full race distance, does it feel like a home race and that kind of stuff? Does it give you that extra little bit of push that maybe it would in real life?
I don't know. I didn't like the track for a very long time, but in the last 2-3 years, I got better at it. And only 2.5 years ago, I drove on this track in real life for the first time as well. And since then, I drove like 5 times on this track, I think, with different sports cars, like road legal cars, and just to see, it's not the most accurately scanned track, but the corners are still the same, and the view is still the same. The grandstands are in the same place. Everything, like even the trees around the track are quite good. The curbs are not as good, to be honest, but it's crazy that I play in a game having big dreams on a track, and then it's actually not that far away from me, like only 20 kilometers, and I'm driving there in real life now. Sorry, I muted myself now more regularly as well, and it just feels like being in a movie, and it feels really good.
Well, cheers, Danny. It's been excellent to catch up with you, and best of luck in future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. And we'll wrap that up there. What a stream it's been. Thank you to Jarno and Danny for both joining us to have an interview. Once again, really, you don't have to, but it obviously makes this much, much better for us too to hear from you at the end. And, although this is my first and probably my last, unless I have to get substituted in again, it's been an absolute honour to commentate alongside you, Lewis. And, this has been a really good first experience of 100% League.
Yeah, exactly. 100% distant races, they're all very difficult. I think you've done a great job, and also bringing us the feed as well, because I'm far too incompetent to do any of that. So thank you to yourself, Ryan. It's been much more enjoyable commentating with you than it has been with George. As always, he'd be disappointed if I didn't throw him under the bus at least a little bit. So that's fine. No, it's honestly loved it. It's been great.
Well, we'll wrap it up there then. Thank you everybody so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next one.